Hello, hello, hello. It's good to see everyone. I hope everyone is having a good Wednesday. Shout out to you. Shout out to you. I'm coming back with three more cases for you guys, and I hope you really enjoy it. And like I said, we're in the middle of the week. Don't worry, guys. We're going to make it to Friday. I'm telling you, keep faith. We can all do it. And I hope that everything is going well with everyone here. So, the first case that I have for you, ladies and gents, is a example of a paramedic. A paramedic tends to snap. She was in a relationship and it seems like something happened or something spiraled out of control where she ended up hurting or unaliving her significant other. So we're going to take a look into that. And let's see. Oh, Joanne, how are you doing? Shout out to you. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you. Shout out to Canada. Thank you for coming. Let's see. Oh, okay. Well, thank you for, 'cause you said nobody's here. I guess you mean yourself. Shout out to you. Have a good thank you for stopping by. And Cruz Rango. Thank you very much. Jesus love you too. Shout out to you, sir. Shout out to you. All right, so let's go ahead and let's look at the first case. Okay. Here we go.
What you are about to hear is an excerpt from a court hearing at the East Hampshire District Court, in which Kara and Anna Marie Rintala are filing restraining orders against one another.
It's a long story, but up until October, she said it's one
Hey, Avinash.
And she constantly threatens me that she's going to take away my job, my livelihood, my daughter, and she's constantly threatening me.
I'm not going to play games with this. I'll have BCF come in here, and I'll indicate to them that I don't think either one of you is stable enough to deal with that child. That's how close I am to going off this bench and picking up the phone right now. Is that what you want?
That same day, Kara dialed 911, fearful of what Anna Marie might do with their daughter, Brianna.
What happens if I call and into the parkway and she's there and then she passes up, tries to hurt me on my arm too. I don't want today, I don't want, we're going there. Okay, but that's okay. You don't know what's happening. She's going to be arrested. We can also mention everything. It's okay, I need help.
It is easy to hear the dismay in Kara's voice and feel empathy for her during these audio clips. In psychology, the connection between a mother and daughter is known to far exceed any other paternal bond, so the fear that Kara may be experiencing in these moments is unparalleled. However, in this case, Kara Rintala is not the victim. Over the course of this video's 45-minute running time, we will showcase the lengths that a solicitous mother will go to when she feels that her livelihood, home, and child are threatened. The case of Kara Rintala has been ongoing for over 13 years, so in order to provide the essential context needed to fully understand this case, we must now start at the beginning. Anna Marie Cochran grew up in the city of Northampton, Massachusetts, in a large Italian-Irish family. Her family knew her as a sweet girl who loved animals, especially dogs, and as a child, she had a Shih Tzu named Snuggles and a poodle named Charlie. Throughout her teen years, she loved to make people happy, and enjoyed the attention when going out of her way to make people laugh. She was the embodiment of the motto seen plastered on decorations all over every home decor store: live, laugh, love, a motto that she made her own. Naturally, it was her dream to become a veterinarian, but moving into adolescence and early adulthood, she found her passion for helping others, and decided to chase her new dream, to become a paramedic. Anna Marie pursued this career as a paramedic, and in 2002, she began a relationship with Kara Rintala, another paramedic that she met on the job. However, her family believed that they were an unusual match. While Anna Marie was boisterous, outgoing, and sometimes impulsive, wearing her heart on her sleeve, Kara was reserved, quiet, and often more calculated and deliberate, one who takes her time to express herself. She was also 7 years older than Anna Marie. Despite their differences, they fell deeper and deeper in love. And in 2005, Anna Marie moved into Kara's residence in Granby. 2 years later, they welcomed their daughter Brianna into their lives, adopting her when she was just under a week old. They then traveled to Provincetown to get married. With 2 fulfilling careers, a commitment to each other in marriage, and a beautiful baby girl, things were better than ever for the Rintala family. Unfortunately, within months, their contrasting personalities began to clash, negatively affecting their marriage. Anna Marie was an amateur photographer on the side and loved spoiling herself with new Canon gear. This expensive passion, combined with her impulsiveness, resulted in serious financial implications for her and her family. She quickly racked up tens of thousands of dollars in credit card debt. These financial stressors then opened the door to other topics of argument, and the state of their marriage rapidly declined, sometimes leading to physical violence. In September of 2008, Anna Marie filed a restraining order against Kara, telling the police.
So just to piggyback on what they're saying, a lot of people don't realize that when it comes to domestic violence, same-sex marriages tend to have the highest number according to the status. I don't know if it has changed, but so far from the last time I saw the stat, same-sex marriages have higher cases in domestic violence. And usually that happens is because it's not taken as seriously as it is versus a man or a woman having a altercation, because it's automatic. It's like society is used to men being stronger than women, or women being the weaker vessel, and they don't look at it seriously when it's the same sex, that like they feel like you're pretty much going against the same type of level of threat when you're dealing with the same person or the same gender. So I think that's another reason why those stats are high. What I have noticed so far with they're talking about their dynamics of the relationship, it seems that this person was an impulsive buyer, and they had a great, a hobby that they enjoy, photography and stuff. And those cameras are very, very, very expensive. They're not cheap cameras. Even the lens itself can be like up to $200 to $300, right? And sometimes we get fooled into thinking that now that we combine resources and money together when we get into relationships, we think that we have a little bit more wiggle room to spend money, and it's not going to affect the dynamics of the relationship. And I think that sometimes we don't take that into consideration, that just because now that you join in with someone and you start to have more income to wiggle around, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have more income to wiggle around as an individual. It's more income for you to wiggle around as a union, as a family, right? And that can also change the dynamic and cause financial issues within marriages. Let's see. Hi, young Riaz, how you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. And let's see. Muhammad Amir, good to see you. Hi. All right, so let's go on. And thank you so much, young Riaz. I appreciate you for sharing me out.
That Kara had punched her in the back of the head. Kara was arrested and charged with domestic assault and battery, but the charges were later dropped at Anna Marie's request. While Kara and Anna Marie continued with their struggling marriage, they each began to develop deeper friendships with the people within their social circles. Kara turned to Mike, and Anna Marie turned to Mark. Although Mark had a wife and daughter, he and Anna Marie formed a strong emotional bond, to the point that he helped her obtain a credit card to help fix her credit score. She promptly used this credit card to spend over $7,000. Regardless, there was no definitive proof that either relationship was anything more than platonic. On May 12, 2009, a 911 call was placed from the Rintala residence. Unintelligible screaming could be heard in the background, but nobody was responding to the dispatcher. That call was then ended from the Rintala's end of the phone line. When the police followed up on said call, both Kara and Anna Marie explained that Brianna had inadvertently dialed 911. Strangely, it was later that same day that Kara filed for divorce. According to court documents, the reason for ending the marriage was an irretrievable breakdown. Just 2 weeks later, another distressful 911 call was made to Granby police. It was Kara. She was deeply distraught, making it difficult to understand her. She pleaded with the dispatcher, convinced that Anna Marie was going to take Brianna away from her.
What's your emergency? Emergency 9, emergency alarm. I'm very upset because my spouse and I are going through divorce proceedings, and she's so on my head with the fact that she'll do everything from me.
You can't see me?
I feel like I'm walking.
You can't see me? Can you see me? Put a 1 in the chat if you can see me and everything is good. The sound is good. Put a 1 in the chat for me, please. Just want to double check. Put a 1 in the chat if you could. Anybody that's in the chat, just put a 1 just to let me know if you can hear me and the screen is okay. Yes, no. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte. I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you, Joanne.
I'm just, I didn't need to call that. I heard it. I'm very serious. We want to make sure that everything goes. There's no physical progression by all means, It's more emotional. You gotta go either way, you gotta go there, you gotta go. Okay, I don't want, we're going there. Okay, but that's okay. There's somebody to be arrested. We can make a mention and everything. Everything's okay. I need help. I know. That's why we're going to go to you. Okay. Okay? All right. Okay, bye.
Shortly after this call, Kara and Anna Marie visited the district court regarding requests that they submitted to obtain restraining orders against one another. Kara was overwhelmed with emotion yet again, saying that she was afraid of Anna Marie, as Anna would constantly threaten to take away her livelihood, her home, and her daughter.
All right, and for the record, who is Kara Rentalo?
I am.
And you are Anna Marie Rentalo? And is it my understanding that the two of you are married?
Hey, Lana.
And there is a child
How you
involved here,
doing?
is that correct, Brianna?
Yes, we got her 6 days old. Karen and I had gotten to an altercation on the 12th, early morning of the 12th.
Listen to my question. This incident happened on the 12th. Why is it that it's 2 weeks later that we're now in court?
As Karen was served divorce papers this morning by the sheriff, she went ballistic. Brianna and I left the home. Upon our return, which was around 1 o'clock, she started screaming, yelling, "You're not taking my house, you're not taking Brianna."
That's fine. You've answered the question. The Kara Rentalo, what is the basis of you seeking a restraining order? Go right ahead.
Today I reached all that I can take, and I'm afraid to be in my house because of what Ann's going to say, because I'm constantly threatened, verbally and bodily, as far as in my personal space, all the time. And I called the police department twice, and I had asked what to do about it. And today, if she's right, I mean, I filed 2 weeks ago, and I held it off, and then
You filed what 2 weeks ago?
I filed divorce 2 weeks ago.
You filed papers?
I did. It's a long story, but up until October, it's only been verbal. And she constantly threatens me.
So Joanne said, did they both adopt the daughter, or did one carry and the other one adopt? They both, I think that one carried and the other one adopted because they were actually legally married, right? And this is what's playing out. This is one of the cases that happens with horrible divorce. Obviously, it seems that Cara wanted a divorce. Anna Marie did not want a divorce. Probably the home belonged to Cara, and she probably gave birth to their daughter, and that's why she's afraid that she's going to take away, her daughter, take away the home and stuff like that. You notice how she called the police even when it wasn't an emergency. She didn't call the non-emergency line that 911 have. She literally called 911, and she's telling them that she's afraid of losing this, she's losing that, and there was no physical altercation, but she's already trying to set it up that is already something on file for 911 in reference to what's going on in their house, right? So that was somewhat of a protection level, and another way where she can actually go file a police report to get a restraining order against her, because she's not really saying why she's getting a restraining order against her. Not until now that she's speaking with the judge, but it just seemed like it's a tit for tat, and she's very unhappy that this woman doesn't want to stay in the marriage anymore. Hey, nothing but the truth. How are you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. All right, let's go on a little bit with their conversation with the judge.
She's gonna take with my job, my livelihood, my daughter, and she's constantly threatening me.
All right.
So I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I want peace in the house. My family lives in Rhode Island. It's not, and I own the house. I pay the whole mortgage myself. I pay all the bills myself, and that's why I don't need. And his family lives one town away. I said, is there any way you could just stay with your family for a little bit, just because so we don't. There's no volatility in front of Brianna, and that's all. I'm just nervous. I don't know what to do.
Well,
I was just.
I'm sorry? Very briefly.
I was very upset because I wanted a divorce.
No, I filed first, and sorry.
I would have taken off Kara's schedule. She has a fixed schedule, so when she has to work, I have to either take days off. I'm like the primary caregiver for Brianna. I'm always in the home. I cook, I clean, I do everything for Kara. She made $80,000 last year. I made $20,000 because I'm like a stay-at-home mom for Brianna.
All right.
The problem is she doesn't want me to have. I filed for divorce. She's very upset with me.
This is an issue that goes well beyond a simple restraining order. We can have criminal charges going back and forth against both of you, and the only one that's going to really affect in the long run is your daughter. I'm going to issue 2 restraining orders of no abuse. No abuse. The 2 of you can either deal with this as adults and deal with it in the probate court as your marriage dissolves, or I'll take, if you want, I'll call DCF right now. But right now, the 2 of you are going to walk a very fine line. You're either going to exist in that house until you get this straightened out, or you're going to look at criminal charges, one or both of you, and I promise you, if I see that come into this court, I will be on the phone to DCF so fast, they'll be here before you get out the door.
The next month, in June of 2009, Anna Marie secretly began seeing her ex, Carla Danielle, a Springfield police officer. By August, Anna had relocated from Kara's house and settled in with Carla in South Hadley. However, in November, having accumulated $10,000 in charges on Carla's credit card, Anna Marie parted ways with her and returned to live with Kara. They both agreed to work on their relationship, putting their differences aside in order to raise Brianna in a 2-parent household. At this point, their combined credit card debt had now amounted to just over $100,000. But this did not.
This is really bad spending. It seems that Anna Marie has very bad spending. And is she haven't just only just did this with her estranged wife, she did this with her ex-girlfriend that became her current girlfriend. And she had to end up leaving that relationship because you started creating more debt. So she has a problem. She has a serious problem with spending. And it also seemed like, her wife had a problem with spending, because the simple fact that you have $100,000 in debt, and it's not like $100 in debt because of something to do with the house, something to do with your car, or anything of that sort. No, you have credit card debt because you're charging things that you just couldn't afford at that time, and then still not paying it. And from what they're saying, when they were speaking with the judge, one made $80,000. They was out in the house, out of the house most of the time, and the other one was technically a stay-at-home mom, only bringing in $25,000. That's having $100,000 in credit card debt. That is a lot for that particular type of income. This doesn't seem good. And it seemed like she backtracked too. She backtracked to that marriage because of that debt, right? And because she needed the help. So let's go on. I always tell you, don't ever go back, go forward. If there's a reason why something needed to end, let it end, right? Most of the time the reasons are valid, and we literally try to convince ourselves that it's not valid. Let's go on.
Not stop them from going on an extravagant Caribbean cruise to commemorate this new beginning, while also renewing their wedding vows. However, the sunshine and sacred words of commitment did not prevent their relationship from quickly deteriorating once again. And as it seemed that they had given up on attempting to fix their finances, they quickly found a new topic to argue about: their friends Mike and Mark. On March 28, 2010, Anna Marie was on duty for an overnight paramedic shift in Springfield. While she was away, Kara was visited by her friend Mike, who arrived with a six-pack of Bud Light. Kara messaged Anna Marie to let her know about the visit. Anna's reaction was intense, becoming extremely upset and seemingly jealous of the idea of Kara spending time with Mike. In her response, she texted, "It is becoming very clear how you feel about me. I don't like feeling this way. You are my wife. I hate the relationship that we have." Kara responded, "Okay, you being over the top and crazy for no reason. It's okay. He's my friend, period. Not doing anything wrong." Anna Marie replied, "You are rude. I'm gonna leave. I don't give a shit. You are rude and disrespectful." Throughout their text-based yelling match, Anna Marie decided to organize a visit with Mark for a few days later, when Kara was scheduled for an overnight shift. The heated text exchange continued all night, but eventually stopped at 8 a.m. when Anna Marie completed her shift and headed home. Shortly after Anna returned home, Kara was called into her job at the Ludlow Fire Department. She drove to Ludlow, punched in, only to be sent home, pulling back into her driveway at 11 a.m. Kara then stayed at the house for about 4 hours. At 1:53 p.m., Mark messaged Anna Marie, informing her that his sister had been diagnosed with cancer. Contrary to her usual behavior, she did not respond. Mark would later delete this text message. At around 3 p.m., Kara and Brianna left the house to complete some errands and let Anna Marie rest while they were out. During the next several minutes, you will hear the most confabulated pieces of voicemail data associated with the murder of Anna Marie Cochran-Rintala. These strange messages were left by Kara over the 4 hours that she and Brianna were supposedly out running errands. Many of those who are familiar with this case have linked these voice messages with the potentiality of Kara's involvement in Anna's death.
I mean, you're mad. I'm like, why do you know I love this him? I mean, he's like one of their closest friends, but there's no reason to be mad when, my gosh, seems like we were getting along fine earlier. But anyway, that's a fact. Love you, and I love you, and we are still guys. We love you. Oh my gosh, she's good. I know, I have to do it. And listen, it's me again. No, come on, you're trying to make a story. Like, well, fuck, fine, get mad, but then, you at least text back or call back. Either way, well, remember we forgot to get stuff for your lunch tomorrow in school. So, yeah, we're going home, but no, it's not the wrong way. I missed the traffic shot, honey. Can't some driver me.
That is crazy. That is crazy. You hear the daughter in the background telling her, "Where are we going? We're going the wrong way." That little girl is sharp and intuitive. She knows something's going on. This is not the way home, mom. And because she's trying to use these voice messages as a way saying that she was concerned that Anna Marie wasn't actually texting back or anything like that, is a real strong piece to hear the little girl, because children at that age, they don't lie, right? They don't lie. They're going to be very vocal and they're going to express themselves. She's letting them know on the recording, hey, where are we going? This is not the way home, mom. This is the wrong way. And she's sitting up there trying to change it. No, this is the right way. You're wrong. She's trying to flip it because it's messing up her recording. That is crazy. That is insane. Let's see. Hey, Big Draws. How you doing? Thank you for stopping by. Joanne said, I have a feeling that this is going to be important. Yes, it is very important. Pay attention. Remember that. Keep that recording of hearing the daughter in the background asking, where are they going? And when the mom said, we're going to home. And she's like, this is not the way to home. Remember that, right? That's very important. Hey, Miss Jalen, how you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. I appreciate you. All right, let's go on.
Cheese and crackers and, the chili and all, and maybe that's bye, call. Okay, we'll go back. Hey, and I'm starting to really freaking worried I'm not worried, but actually part of me just irritated. It's like, I know that you don't call when you get all upset, and I told you it's only Mike, my body can munch, okay? And I'm going to you, we're going to Burger King. We thought we would come out of the mall, and of course you're hungry, and the happiness about it. McDonald's, there's a lot of McDonald's, no fun. The only thing that was that she answered, burger. Like, oh, good job, buddy. Are we Burger King? Call, please, please, please. Bye.
It is widely surmised that Kara left these voice messages on Anna Marie's cell phone as a way to establish an alibi and as an attempt to nullify any evidence that the two were actively engaged in a volatile disagreement during the 16 hours prior to these moments. With the information that we have just presented, what happened next may come as no surprise. When Kara and Brianna returned from their errand run around 7 p.m., Kara would state that Anna Marie was nowhere in sight. She then noticed that the basement light was left on. And when she went to check it out, she discovered Anna Marie lying face down at the bottom of the stairs, lifeless, bloody, and broken. Apparently, Kara reacted quickly and scooped Brianna into her arms. She ran to their next-door neighbor Roy Dupuis, handed him Brianna, and shouted to him to call 911, following up with Anna's in the basement. Roy promptly contacted the authorities.
What's your emergency? Hi, my neighbor just came over. She was pretty distraught when she come over here with the baby. She told me to call 911. She said the other one was down in the basement, but she didn't say much.
Maybe a domestic.
3 minutes later, police were on the scene. Upon entering the kitchen, they noticed that the basement door was left open. They then heard a woman shouting from downstairs. As they entered the basement, they discovered Kara holding Anna Marie's body. Strangely, the body was covered in wet, pinkish-white paint. Officer Gary Poehler, who was familiar with Anna Marie, initially struggled to identify her due to the severe swelling on her face. And after further examination, Anna's body was reported as cold and stiff upon discovery, as if she had been dead for several hours. The officers took Kara to the kitchen and asked her what happened. To which she replied, "We'd been arguing since yesterday. We should not leave each other mad," and proceeded to tell the officers about her day running errands with Brianna. Out of the blue, she then said, "I understand that I'm the #1 suspect." Lieutenant Robin Whitney arrived to lead the investigation with the support from an experienced detective named Jamie Magarian. As Detective Magarian continued to examine the crime scene, Lieutenant Whitney escorted Kara.
Now that's very concerning for me because she said that to the detectives. She said, I understand I'm the #1 suspect. Ma'am, you try to make it seem like she accidentally fell down the stairs and that's how she ended up unalive. So why would there be a suspect if it was a freak accident, right? So in a way, she kind of told on herself right then and there by saying, I know I am the number one suspect. You don't know what route they was going to go with this incident, right? Because they haven't finished doing their investigation. So the whole simple fact that you even had that back in your mind is letting me know that this was going to turn into a homicide, right? And then to find out that she was laying there for hours, that's how far, like, this wasn't fresh. She was laying there unalive for hours in the basement. That also leads into what happened when she came home at 11 o'clock. Was the little girl asleep? Was you in the house? Did you do that when she came home from work at 11 o'clock, and then you left 4 hours later and you took the daughter to go do errands? That's what it seems like. That's exactly what you did. And you thought that, sending these voicemail messages and text messages to your wife's phone was the alibi, as stated earlier in this video. But that's just very horrible right there, right? Like, you had so much hatred for this woman that you said that you loved, that this woman that you married and committed yourself to and had a child with, that you will unalive your wife in the house with your child in the house, right? Like, I sometimes it's really disturbing when you start to break down people's mindset and psyche, and how they really don't be caring about anybody else but themselves. And they can convince themselves that they're doing this for their children or the best interest of their children, and you can really see that they're not. Because how can you even do that? Like, what if your daughter uh accidentally saw you unaliving the other mother? You think that that's not going to traumatize her? What if she would have ran across her body, and then you just hurry up and get her out the house and lie and say that mommy's sleeping? You think that that's not going to affect her psyche? So it's like, y'all really do not be caring about anybody else. Y'all lie to yourselves and think that this is for the greater good, but it's not for the greater good. It's for the greater you. Let's go on.
Back to the Granby police station, where she took part in an interview.
All right, so let's back up a bit. You have a history of domestic violence, Anna, right? Okay.
Trying to take care of everything, and I tired, I guess, working overtime and trying to make ends meet and pay for all of us, and that was probably, that was another source of connection. And we used to push each other, we did, like, we'd argue and it would get physical, absolutely. No angel doesn't, I can honestly say it was definitely back and forth, you know what I mean? The same problems were there. I felt, and again, people like say about me, or you want to talk to Dad about me, because I don't care about her, I love her, I want to talk bad about her, because I'm bringing a lot of girls out for me, I love her, and I don't want to talk bad. I feel like I'm betraying her, I feel like I'm betraying her by talking about her, half stuff. And we agreed to feel together move on and start turning that half behind us. I feel like this is the worst thing I could do for her to talk bad.
Hello, Kilo.
I do. Yeah. It's terrible. God. And I like that, and so I get very anxious over it. You know what I mean? I don't like confrontation. I don't like the loudness. I don't like swearing. And that's what she was kind of brought up around, so that's all she knows. It's not that she's that person, but that's personality. And it eats at me, and I feel, like I can't even get out of the way. I felt bullied. I did. And that's a mean word. I felt bullied. I was reality, and I felt bullied. I did. I felt little, and it was always swear to him, and all the swearing, it makes you feel really bad about yourself. And I feel like,
hey Barry, how you doing? Good evening to you.
She walks right over you. She is, there's a part of her that's really hard. She is so charming, so thoughtful, but you want to know, I know she's tired. I don't think they don't think, No. They don't. With the pain all over her back. I'm not 4-year-old woman. No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. It doesn't look any, I don't know. I don't think so. So, again, so now we go back to the question is, would someone hurt her? I can't see that. I mean, I can't see that. I mean, she gets in arguments all the time with people, all the time. She is a very thick-headed person, she says what she means, what she feels, and some people take offense. What do you think? I want to say, if I had to guess, he said, she fell on the stairs, she tripped on the stupid shoe all the way down there.
I love that the detective did that, right? I love it. Because when the detective does that, when they ask you, oh, okay, so what do you think that happened to her, right? They want to see what you would want them to believe what happened to her instead of what the evidence shows, right? And the funny thing is, this woman, she's actually really smart, right? Because what she did was after she unalived her, left out the house with the daughter, went shopping, gave fake voice messages that she wanted Anna to call her back and she's concerned, came back in the house, pretended that she didn't know that Anna Marie was literally lying there for hours after you unalived her, went to the neighbor's house with the daughter, frantic, had the neighbors call 911, and then she ran back to the house and started holding her ex-wife, all covered in blood and bruised up. And she did that on purpose because if she didn't touch her, she would realize once they start to investigate the body that her fingerprints and her DNA would be all over Anna Marie's body. So she wanted to be found at the scene of the crime already with her DNA all over her. And they see it themselves because she's actually holding her. She's very smart, but she's not smarter than this detective. Let's go on.
It actually happened. We were talking about changing it this way. Constantly.
But it really didn't make any sense, though. If she felt that was scared, that she would be where she is.
Very patient for everything. And everything that I've been asking me to do, I haven't had any support. It's very hard. And it's starting to feel like I'm getting a finger pointed at me.
Many people believe that Kara's behavior in this interview was unusual. She went from complaining about Anna Marie within the first 7 minutes to telling the detectives how horrible she feels talking negatively about her, and then going right back to more complaining. Following this interview, Whitney prepared to conduct a second interview. However, a call came in from David Hoos, a highly prominent criminal attorney in Western Massachusetts, stating that he was Kara's legal representative and advised against any further questioning. Law enforcement immediately complied. 4 days following Anna Marie's death, Elizabeth Schiebel, the Northwestern District Attorney, made a public announcement stating that Anna Marie had died from strangulation. The DA's office then confirmed this as a homicide case, the first one in Granby in 30 years. Throughout the investigation, details of Kara and Brianna's errand run on the day of the crime emerged due to a plethora of surveillance cameras along their route. Kara and Brianna left their home in Granby around 3 p.m. They then made a detour to Ludlow, a neighboring town, to visit llamas. They then proceeded to the Holyoke Mall and arrived shortly before 5 p.m. Surveillance footage showed Kara parking her Ford Explorer near the Target entrance. In this footage, a laundry basket and a red bag are visible in the back of the truck. During their mall visit, they went to the Children's Place and the Gap to buy t-shirts and socks. Around 30 minutes later, they left the mall and drove 2 miles to a McDonald's. Kara drove to the farthest part of the parking lot behind the restaurant. She then got out of the truck and threw some clothes into a plastic trash bin. They then left the premises without making any purchases. Investigators ended up finding this garbage bin and rummaged through it. Among the trash, a rag was found with blood on it. They continued to their next stop, a Stop and Shop. After getting groceries at the Stop and Shop, Kara drove 5.5 miles to a Burger King in Chicopee to get food for Brianna. The laundry basket and bag were still in the back of the truck at this time. Finally, they headed back home, another 5 miles. At some point between Burger King and the Rentala residence, the laundry basket and bag had vanished. Despite the high publicity of this case, over a year went by without any legal proceedings, nor were any substantial comments made by the DA's office. During this lull, Kara sold her Granby residence and relocated to Rhode Island with Brianna, where her mother and stepfather lived. In October of 2011, well over a year and a half following Anna Marie's death, a grand jury indicted Kara on first-degree murder charges. She was arrested in Rhode Island and was taken back to Massachusetts to face these charges. Kara was ordered to be held without bail at the Women's Correctional Facility, and after 16 months of numerous pretrial motions and hearings, the trial began on February 20th, 2013.
Jurors heard opening arguments today in the state's first murder case ever involving a same-sex married couple.
22 News reporter Julie McDonald was in court to hear allegations of the couple's fights, financial troubles, and suspicions of infidelity.
This homicide did not occur out of the blue.
Prosecutor Stephen Gagne painted a picture Wednesday of a turbulent marriage between Kara Rentala and her wife, Anna Marie Cochran. The couple was drowning in $95,000 of credit card and auto loan debt. There were restraining orders, divorce filings, and multiple calls to Granby police during their 2.5-year marriage.
District Attorney Gagne explained to the jury that the relationship between Kara and Anna Marie had been tumultuous. Moreover, there was also physical evidence to consider. Gagne highlighted the bloody cloth that was found in the garbage at the McDonald's, as well as the disappearance of the laundry basket and red bag from Kara's truck, which was never recovered. A medical examiner also provided their testimony, suggesting that Anna Marie's death probably occurred between noon and 2 p.m. Kara claimed to have still been home with Brianna at this time. Considering these details, Gagne contended that Kara possessed the means, the motive, and the opportunity to end Anna Marie's life. He said the result was Anna Marie's body lying on a cold cement floor immersed in a pool of fresh paint mixed with her own blood, and that Kara ended the marriage once and for all with her own 2 hands. Defense attorney David House, representing Kara, spoke to the jury, explaining that he did not know for sure who killed Anna Marie, but neither did Gagne. He stated that although there were many things wrong with this case, he didn't need to prove anything, while Gagne, on the other hand, had to convince the jury of Kara's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, or as he called it, the last refuge of the innocent. House acknowledged that Kara should have been under suspicion, but not exclusively. He argued that investigators should have also considered others, like Mark Oleksak and Carla Danielle. He contended that the investigators dismissed these possibilities due to a preconceived notion that Kara was the prime suspect in her wife's murder. As the trial proceeded, it became clear that the evidence Gagne possessed was not as divisive as he asserted during the bail hearing in 2011. For instance, he claimed that there would be multiple people from Kara's past relationships testifying about her abusive behaviors. Apparently, these leads did not pan out. Additionally, he had explained at the hearing that the paint on Anna Marie's body was Glidden sealing paint, initially pink upon application, but transitioning to white within an hour. When first responders arrived, the paint was still pink, indicating recent application. However, the transformation of paint color from pink to white was not discussed at the trial, since the images taken at the crime scene in the poorly lit basement apparently weren't sufficient in depicting the pink hue. Regarding the rag discovered in the McDonald's trash can, initially believed to have Anna Marie's blood, Subsequent tests revealed highly degraded DNA, making it impossible to definitively determine whose blood was on it, or if it was even human. Gagne's primary witness was the
This is hard, and I see why they try to take their time with this, because the woman that's on trial is a paramedic. She understands blood, right? That's her job. She understands blood. She understands how it shows up. She understands how she can make things inclusive, especially paramedics have the ability to draw blood, right? Unlike EMTs, unless you're a particular class of EMT that's almost similar to a paramedic, you can't draw blood from an individual. It's a lot because even like I said, they couldn't find the I guess the cooler that she had in her truck. They can't find that. So they don't even know where that is disposed. They can't confirm nor deny what substance or what DNA is on that rag that they found at McDonald's. They knew that she touched the body after the body was unalive, so they already had her DNA on her, and plus they live in the same house, right? So it was a smart move for the defense attorney to try to point the narrative that they didn't do their due diligence because they only went with the prime suspect, which is normally is the spouse, right? Especially when they had a whole bunch of domestic altercations, but they didn't look into the male friends that Anna Marie had, or the ex-girlfriend that Anna Marie just recently left a couple of months ago before she actually came back and tried to work things out with her wife. So that was a good route for the defense attorney to go. Obviously, he is a pro, and his name is his name for a reason. But it still doesn't point to the fact of the strangulation. It still doesn't point to the fact that nobody in the community, and there is no video showing that anybody that does not live in that community came to her house around the time of 12 p.m. And after 5 p.m. There's no video saying that somebody showed up to the house, right? And they know that she was unalive 4 hours. Her body was cold, right? When they finally got there. So that's why most likely is the reason why the prosecutors went with the wife, because the last person that saw her was the wife and the daughter, right? And she never left that house once she came back from work at 11:30. This is wicked. This is really wicked if you really think about it, because it's a possibility the way how this paramedic lady how she played it, she could literally get out of this. She could really get out of this.
medical examiner who performed the autopsy, Joanne Richmond. In cross-examination by Hoos, the medical examiner admitted that her initial autopsy report had indicated the time of death as unknown. In another cross-examination, a detective from the state police informed Hoos that Mark had provided false information during his initial 2 police interviews. Initially, Mark had said that he had been home on the afternoon that Anna Marie was killed. In his second interview, he changed his story, disclosing that he, his wife, and his daughter had gone to a furniture store later in the afternoon. Additionally, it was only when confronted with receipts several months later that Mark admitted to visiting the bank, making a purchase of sweatpants at Walmart, and buying a bag of cat litter at a Big Y supermarket earlier that day. This was significant, since very small traces of cat hair had been found on Anna Marie's body, despite not having owned a cat for at least 9 months. During the questioning, Hoos also highlighted a peculiar circumstance that despite having a marriage and family of his own, Mark had been fixated on Anna Marie, not only enough to lend her a credit card to pay for her phone bills, but to the extent that he brought her sleeping bag home and slept in it for several months after her death. The jury went to deliberation, and on the 3rd day, there was a consensus that Kara was likely not innocent. However, 6 jurors believed that Gagne had failed to prove her guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. On March 13th, 2013, at 3 p.m., after 6 days of deliberation, the jury informed the judge that they were deadlocked and that continued deliberations would not lead to a unanimous decision. Consequently, Rupp declared a mistrial, and the jurors were dismissed.
A Northampton jury has failed to come to a unanimous verdict in the state's first ever trial of a woman accused of killing her lawful wife. 22 News reporter Anna.
That's some real turn of events. If they found cat litter in her hair and she doesn't own a cat, and this Mark guy, he owns a cat, or he had cat litter, that does change it a little bit, right? And I definitely feel that it's real weird that after Anna Marie's death, you took her sleeping bag and you slept in her sleeping bag for months after she passed away, and you are a married man with your own family. So it does seem like he was a bit obsessed with Anna Marie. He loved her, and it seemed like he loved her more than just a mutual friendship. He kind of quite desired her. So that is a little bit of a chain of events. So I see why the jury came back as that was it wasn't enough to just automatically convict Cara for her wife's death, that they really wanted to take into consideration all that new evidence for the friend Mark possibly went to visit her, and that would make sense too why nobody in the community was really alarmed about that, because they known or have seen Mark before, or Anne Marie let him in, right? So that's not going to draw attention either if the victim let her the suspect in, right? This is crazy. This is getting really wicked. Hey Dawn, how you doing? Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you. Shout out to Paris. Let's go on.
Curtis Rodriguez joins us live with the latest.
After 4 days of deliberations, Hampshire County Superior Court Judge Mary LaRoupe declared a mistrial in the Cara Rintala murder case. The jury's foreman told Judge Roop this afternoon that the jury was unable to come to a unanimous verdict. The jury said that further deliberations would not result in a verdict they would all agree to, forcing the judge to declare a mistrial. Cara Rintala was accused of killing her wife inside of their Granby home in 2010, and after the mistrial, First Assistant District Attorney Stephen Gagney told 22 News he couldn't understand why there was a hung jury.
We have no idea what the sticking point was or what any sort of divide may have been. It could have been 11-1, it could have been 6-6. Only the jurors know at this point.
Cara was not allowed bail following her first trial and would be held through her second trial as well. It began a year later in early 2014. The prosecution and defense still felt confident in their respective cases, and they didn't stray far from their original arguments. They hoped that by simply having a new jury, a just verdict would be reached. To everyone's astonishment, Cara's second trial resulted in another hung jury, and another mistrial was declared by Judge Rupp.
It just happened moments ago. First, we thought they were going to recess, but in fact, the jury had passed a note to the judge saying that they were deadlocked once again at 8-4, and because that's exactly where they were on Friday, they have not been able to budge from that in deliberations for on Monday. And now here on Tuesday morning, they have declared a mistrial. So it's the second mistrial in the murder trial of Cara Rintala. She has been accused of murdering her wife, but the jury cannot come to a unanimous verdict.
Cara's defense team moved to have the indictment dismissed altogether because the evidence presented at her second trial was insufficient to warrant a conviction. However, Judge Rupp denied this motion. Cara's appeal to this decision was denied by the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court, essentially validating Judge Rupp's decision. Cara was going to be tried for a third time. The prosecution sticking to their guns didn't quite work in getting Cara convicted in the second trial, so they decided to change their...
So you remember what I guys told you about mistrials, right? This is why prosecutors don't like mistrials. Mistrials makes them have to start all over again, add new things into discovery, and to present it to the judge or the jury to try to get a conviction. And that takes time, right? It takes time, and you have to find people, you have to find new witnesses. And then on top of that, right, Dawn, 2 mistrials, eventually, if it was to come across a new judge, they can dismiss the whole trial altogether, right? And she would not have been convicted of anything. This mistrial actually worked in this suspect's favor, right? It gave her more time. She's not officially charged or convicted of anything. And eventually, if they don't get it right, or if the jury doesn't see eye to eye again, it can actually be thrown out. And once it's thrown out, by having at least 3 mistrials, once it's thrown out, it's going to be thrown out with prejudice. And what thrown out with prejudice means is that she would not be able to be convicted or trial ever again for this incident, for this case. So that's why I wanted y'all to pay attention with the mistrials. That is really not a good look. It's something that prosecutors really try to hope to avoid. That's why they do their due diligence to get confessions and confirmation and solid evidence, because potentially, a person who have unalived someone, a killer, can be set free, and they will never be charged. They will never be brought back in front of a court to be charged for that particular crime again. Yes, they might, if they're one of those serial killers or they like to do things like that, eventually they might get caught up and convicted for somebody else's passing, but this particular passing, they will not be charged for. Let's go on.
Their tactic. They were allowed to bring a paint expert to give their testimony. During the trial, the expert testified that the paint should have dried within 30 minutes. This was a massive win for the prosecution. It solidified their timeline, proving that Kara was the only one who could have covered Anna Marie's body in paint, attempting to manipulate the crime scene. It appeared to be the key to the jury settling on a verdict, because on October 7, 2016, Kara Rintala was found guilty in the first-degree murder of Anna Marie Cochran Rintala, and was later sentenced to life in prison. It seemed that Anna Marie's
Yes, exactly, Barry. Mistrials cost time and it costs a lot of money. Right, absolutely. And I knew that's the reason why she, Anna Marie, was covered in paint, right? I knew that was the reason why she used that, right? She covered her with paint because she was all covered with blood. And then again, she's holding her, right? She's holding her, covering her with paint and blood, and to mess up any DNA, right? So you can't get like really clear DNA about things. But I'm glad that they tested the paint to see why that paint wasn't dry yet, especially if her body was so cold, and she was found to have been dead for over hours. They said about 4 hours that her body was laying down there in the basement. So she recently took the paint and put it over Anne Marie's body, and then pretended to hold her while the cops was going to come in. This is crazy. I'm glad that they did that. That was a smart thing to do, because she really could have gotten away with it. She really could have.
Family could finally put their minds at ease knowing that justice had been served.
A dramatic ending to Kara Rintala's third murder trial. The jury deliberated for 4 days and late this afternoon delivered a unanimous decision that Kara Rintala killed her wife in their Granby home in 2010 with malice aforethought and extreme atrocity.
Is she not guilty? Guilty of murder in the first degree, guilty of murder in the second degree, or guilty of voluntary manslaughter?
She's guilty of murder in the first degree.
Kara screamed out, "What about my daughter?" after receiving the verdict. However, this was not the dramatic ending that everybody thought it was, as 5 years later, on September 27, 2021, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court overturned the conviction, ruling that Judge Rupp had erred by allowing the paint expert to give their testimony. It turns out that the experiments conducted by the paint expert were not only carried out on the wrong material, but also did not follow scientific method. which is a bare minimum standard for something being used in court as evidence. Kara was then released on a $50,000 bail, awaiting her new trial, and lived with her elderly parents and her now teenage daughter, Brianna, in Rhode Island. On September 13, 2023, for a fourth time, Kara was put in front of the jury to be tried for murder, more than 13 years after the death of her spouse. And for the fourth time as well, the state would be fighting for her conviction.
You will hear evidence that when the first responders arrived, they observed the body of Anne Marie Rentala, they touched the body of Anne Marie Rentala, they moved her arm, they moved her hips, they moved her body in order to...
That's crazy, right? That is absolutely crazy. Yes, it's incredible. Overturned. Yeah, she got... Yes, she does have 9 lives, doesn't she, Mary? Like, Jesus. Look, I don't know. Like, but she's been getting saved after saved after saved. And then they overthrew it. And this is why it's so important, you guys, to do things to the T. Cross your T's and dot your I's, especially if you're in that career work when it comes down to being any form of law enforcement, even in forensic, and then even the paper side of law enforcement. You have to really make sure that you do your work, because any technical error, any slip-ups, I'm just going to take the easy way and brush through it. This is what happens with human error. And just think about it. It can work both ways. It can be human error that can save someone's life who did not commit a crime, and it can be a human error to let an actual killer get away with a crime. So take your job seriously at all times. Be proud in anything that you do. It's very important.
Release Kara from out underneath the body. They will testify in this trial that when they did so, her body was stiff as a board. Her body was completely one unit. Her arms were above her head. When they moved her body, it was completely locked in that position and moved as a single unit, stiff as a board. And the reason that will be important during the course of this trial is I expect you will hear evidence that, in the opinion of forensic pathologists and medical examiners, that her body was in well-developed rigor mortis, which is the stiffening of the body after death. And at the end of the trial, the evidence will prove to you that the defendant, Kara Lee Rentala, killed Anna Marie, that she intended to kill Anna Marie, and that she did so with deliberate premeditation and extreme atrocity or cruelty. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this whole investigation started with a lie. It started with a lie. When that 911 call was made, that Kara Rentala asked her neighbor, Roy Dupuy, to make, he said nothing about it being a domestic. But you know what the dispatcher did? The dispatcher called it in as a domestic. So before they even get to the crime scene, in their head is the idea it must be Kara Rentala because it's a domestic. The first responders hear that it's a domestic. The first police officers on scene hear that it's a domestic. And when Kara Rentala voluntarily agrees to speak to the police without a lawyer, 6 minutes and 55 seconds into that conversation, the question is asked of her, so I heard there's been a lot of domestic violence. That's why Kara Rentala is bringing up the domestic violence. Not because she wants to talk about a relationship with her and her wife. Because you'll hear evidence, I expect, that they reconciled. They want you to look at it with blinders on, exactly like the first responders did, exactly like the state police did, exactly like the dispatcher did when they said it was a domestic. They want you to just focus on that. They want you to believe that Kara Rentala is the only one in the whole world who had access to that house, and the only one in the whole world who could have done this. What they didn't tell you about is a guy by the name of Mark Olasak. You didn't hear one word about Mark Olasak. Mark Olasak was Cara Rentala's partner as an EMT and firefighter. Mark Olasak was in love with Anne Marie. And how do we know that? We know that, ladies and gentlemen, because when they got around to interviewing him 18 months later,
Thank you,
when he first
Malachi.
lied,
Thank you for
two
stopping
days
by. I
later, they
appreciate
said, "Where were
you.
you?"
And thank you
And
for the
he said,
compliment.
I went to physical therapy that morning, and then I was home the whole rest of the day. Total lie. Total and complete lie. That's not true. But because the police believed it was a domestic, great, all right, we'll check that person off. We don't have to worry about that person anymore. And then they find out that almost a year later, that Mark Olasak is still sleeping in a sleeping bag, a pink sleeping bag that Anne Marie Rentala had at the fire station. And that at least on one occasion, Mark Olasak sent a text to Anne Marie Rentala that he loved her. And he says he loved her in a friend way. That's what he did. But there's more than that. So when the police finally get around to interviewing him, and they find out about the kiss in the corner of the mouth, and they find out about the hugs and the money and the credit card debt of $7,000 and the I love you text, there's more in the sleeping bag. There's more than that. They also find out that he's the one who texts at 1:53. He's the one who texts Anne Marie Rentala at 1:53. And does he tell the police that? No, he doesn't. Does he tell the police, hey, I tried to contact her that night. She never picked up. That's so odd, because she always picks up. No, he doesn't. You know what he does instead, ladies and gentlemen? He deletes the text. He deletes the text at 1:53. And I expect the police will understand and know and learn that he deletes the text. And you know what they do about it? Nothing. And then when they find out that Anne Marie Rentala was also having this relationship with Carla Daniele, they went to go talk to Carla Daniele. And Carla Daniele lies to them as well. She says she goes to her gym that day, and she goes for a run, about 2 hours, maybe 3. And in the middle of her run, which is the opposite direction of where Anne Marie Rentala and Cara Rentala live, she tells them that she goes in this direction. They get her records, they get her bank records, and they find out that she makes a withdrawal.
Paramedic wife potentially unalived her other wife.
Cara Rentala and Anne Marie Rentala live. And so what do? Do they go back and say, hey, wait a minute, you said you were going in this direction, and now you're going in this direction, according to your bank statements? Nope, didn't happen. And then they also find out she goes to a tanning appointment. And nobody questions whether or not when you're in the middle of a run, you would normally stop.
I do want to say that this defense attorney is very good, right? She's very good at painting the story to get through to the juries, right? Which is something that the other defense attorneys amongst the years under the 2 mistrials, that's what they were able to do. Those defense attorneys are really good at their job. They were able to get into the jury's mind and create doubt, which is exactly what defense attorneys are supposed to do. Whether or not if they believe that their client is right or wrong, that's not what defense attorneys are here for. They're not there to pass judgment, and they're not there to actually save innocent people. They're there to make sure that their client get off. And it doesn't matter if their client is a murderer or not. That's what their job is, and that's why they get paid a lot of money. More money than prosecutors get paid, right? But I just wanted to point out that she's very good at painting the story, because she have completely removed Cara from the situation, and she is painting her image about Mark and about the ex-girlfriend Carla, right? Giving more detail about what they do, what they have done, how they responded since this incident, and what relationship they had with the victim, Anna Marie. And that's is to create doubt. That's why she's going over their timeline of where they were and their whereabouts of that time. And it's kind of true, right? Especially, like I said, the catnip in Anna Marie's hair, that's what made me start to question too, right? But now, me thinking about it a little bit more logically, if Anna Marie met up with, let's say, Mark, which she stated that she did, she met up with Mark to borrow $7,000 to quote unquote clear her credit that she had, like the debt that she had. At that time, if she was giving him a hug and stuff, or she was at his house, of course she would have catnip in her hair, right? And we don't know her shampoo schedule. Maybe she doesn't wash her hair until the end of the week. So even with that, even though that's very convincing, that still does not it still does not cover the simple fact that the paint that was found on Anna Marie's body, even though they found it to be inclusive when it came down to the scientific method, it still was supposed to have been completely dried on her body the amount of time that she was in rigor mortis. She was in rigor mortis for 4 hours. However, the paint itself is only supposed to dry white within 30 seconds, really. 30 seconds, depending how thick you lay that on. It could take even almost up to 30 minutes to completely dry and turn from pink to white. And it wasn't. It was still a very light pink on it. So that means that the timeline of when that was actually placed on her would match when Cara came home with the daughter, found her the way that she was, went to the neighbor's house, called 911, and then came back to the house to hold that girl. So even though, like I said, this lady is very good, she's doing a good job to try to paint doubt in the prosecutor's story and their timeline of what Cara did to Anna Marie. But let's see if let's see if she gets away with it.
For a tanning appointment. Nobody questions that. But I expect you're going to see, as part of the crime scene, that there is tanning lotion on that basement floor. You'll hear that there was a struggle in the basement. You'll hear that somebody strangled Anna Marie Rentala. You'll hear that somebody put their hands on her neck for 3 to 4 minutes. And that there's disarray in that cell. And not a scratch, not a cut, not a scratch, not a bruise on Cara Rentala. And ladies and gentlemen, if this is not a search for the truth, this is not an opportunity to give you all of the evidence that you need, so you can look at these witnesses and decide for yourself whether or not to believe them, then it is really a search for the truth at all? Because if it's not, what are we doing here? Cara Rentala did not kill her wife. And if this trial isn't a search for the truth, then why are we all here?
While some people following this case believed that the defense had a strong opening this time around, many seemed put off by the intense approach that they had trying to convince the jury. Defense attorney Rosemary Scapicchio was seen by viewers as abrasive and untrustworthy. It's unclear how this was perceived by the jury. The trial lasted 10 days, with the state calling 20 witnesses to the stand and the defense calling just 2. And after about 2 days of deliberations, 3 jurors were dismissed from service, leading Judge Flannery to add 2 alternates to the deliberating jury.
3 jurors in all were dismissed, 2 that were sitting on the case, and 1 alternate juror. So now 2 additional alternate jurors have been tapped to consider the case. The judge addressed the courtroom Monday, saying that the 3 individuals were dismissed dismissed for personal reasons, and that he did not know their opinion of the case or if they had any opinion on the case.
Despite this hiccup, after about 16 hours, the jury had reached their verdict. Kara Rintala was found guilty of voluntary manslaughter.
What say you, Madam Foreperson? Has the jury agreed upon its verdict in Hampshire County Indictment 1180 CR 0128, the Commonwealth versus Kara Rintala? We have. If you could please give your verdict slips to the court officer. What say you, Madam Foreperson, as to count 1 of Hampshire County Indictment charging the defendant, Kara Rintala, with murder? Is she not guilty, guilty of murder in the first degree, guilty of murder in the second degree, or guilty of voluntary manslaughter?
We, the jury, unanimously find the defendant guilty of voluntary manslaughter.
As you have just witnessed, Kara Rintala was found guilty of the lesser charge, voluntary manslaughter. Massachusetts state law dictates that a defendant convicted of voluntary manslaughter shall be punished by state prison for no more than 20 years. Kara Rintala's sentence hearing is scheduled for this Thursday, October 19th, 2023.
That was a really good case. I really enjoyed that one. I think I'm glad that she did get something, right? Because she was about to walk away. That woman had 9 lives and everything was working out just as she planned, really. And like, remember, she said from the beginning, she was like, "Oh, I know I'm the number 1 suspect." That literally put a red flag in my head, because when she was having her one-on-one interview with the detective, she told the detective that she thought that her wife fell down the stairs, and that's how she lost her life. That's what she said. But before having that interview, you said, "Well, I know I'm the number 1 suspect." So you already had in your mind that this was going to turn into a homicide. That means that you knew that there was a homicide that had occurred, right? I'm glad that she got something, and it was really hard for the prosecutors. It was really hard for the prosecutors to pull this one off, right? This was a real hard one. These were some really good at their job defense attorneys. Very good. They was able to create just as much doubt that they needed to have that many mistrials. And it's true, they did not go looking for all of the potential suspects. They clearly did focus on Kara, her whereabouts, the things that she had done, the handkerchief being left at a McDonald's that was 5 miles away from the house, her traveling 5 miles north, 5 miles south to all these different places around the time that Anna Marie was murdered. And that's where their real focus was at. That's where their focus were. And it's true, they did not investigate Mark, and they did not investigate the ex-girlfriend. And with that, that's what made people be like, I'm not really too sure, right? I'm not really too sure, but she did get something. Prayers to that lady. I know this is an old case, but I need to actually find out what happened with her. She got 20 years. They said that everything was supposed to come out in 2023. That was 2 years ago. So there should be some new information I can find out about that lady. But this was a very good case to go over, because there was a lot of loopholes, and y'all got to see it clear as day how everything is just not cut straight down, right? There's a lot of bumps and hurdles that can happen with convicting someone, and why detectives and prosecutors do the things that they do to really try to solidify a confession to a crime, because look at how many hiccups that they had to go through. Like they almost lost that case. They almost literally lost that case. It was a really hard case, but it was a good one to review. And shout out to everyone watching out. I truly appreciate you. Just make sure you're hitting the like button for me. It really does help the channel. It keeps me in the algorithm, so I can actually keep on going over these type of cases for you guys. And you're always welcome to converse amongst each other in the chat. I appreciate you. So the next case I have for you guys is when a killer could potentially be your husband. So this is another case of a potential unaliving, and it has to do with a male and woman marriage, not a same-sex marriage. So let's look into this one.
So, Miss, what brings you here?
I'm scared that my husband's going to kill me.
Okay. So you're just afraid.
I know that he'll do that.
Whoa. How do you know that?
Because I know.
Well, all right, you're making a comment. How do you know?
Because he told me.
As a viewer that just started watching this video, you may be wondering how someone has found themselves in this frightening and vulnerable position. Well, the answer to that question actually began 13 years earlier. On the evening of January 6th, 2006, at approximately 11:30 p.m., the Crestview Police Department received a chilling 911 call.
I ran in and she breathing down to the house and Melissa's dead on the living room floor.
Okay, if she's unconscious, she's not talking to you, anything?
No, there's blood everywhere.
Okay, is she breathing? Can you get a pulse of any kind?
I haven't even touched her, no ma'am. I didn't want to mess with nothing. She's been murdered.
The caller's name was Christopher Cadenhead, and the woman that was found dead in her home was 33-year-old Melissa Howard. Chris was just stopping by Melissa's place while he headed on his way to a hunting trip. When he arrived at the house at 11:15 p.m., he was surprised to see Melissa's 15-year-old daughter, Carrie Winkler, and her boyfriend Daniel, waiting on the front porch. Carrie found herself locked out of the house, and like Christopher, had tried to contact Melissa without any luck. As the three waited on the porch, they tried several ways to get into Melissa's house. After about 15 minutes, Daniel was finally able to unlock the front door using a FedEx ID card.
I used FedEx ID card, like a credit card, to open
Thanks
the bottom
so much,
lock.
Dawn. I appreciate you. Get some rest.
The moment the door swung open, Carrie rushed inside, only to be confronted with the sight of her mother's lifeless body lying on the floor, in the middle of what looked like a ransacked home. Shocked by what she had just seen, the 15-year-old rushed back outside before Christopher could even step foot inside. After seeing Melissa himself, he then used Carrie's phone to call 911. They quickly dispatched other officers to the scene.
There's been a shooting there, ma'am. Is this Crestview PD? The victim who has been shot is Melissa.
So I wanted to say that that's very alarming, right? Because it took them a lot, her daughter and I guess her boyfriend, it took them a lot to actually get into the house. But when they get into the house is in shambles. It seemed like it's been ramshacked. Well, ramshack signifies that it could potentially be a robbery, right? But it was very hard for you to get inside the house. So that there wasn't no doors that was open. There wasn't a window that was open. So it just seems very conflicting to me personally. It seems very conflicting that it was so hard to get into the house, but it was some potential stranger that came in the house, ransacked, trying to make it seem like it was a robbery. It just doesn't pan out that way. Just if the house is in distraught and it looks like they were searching for something and they wanted to flee the crime, you will also show signs of someone trying to flee the crime from the door as well, or whatever door or whatever window that they use. But let's go on.
Howard.
Despite Chris initially believing that Melissa had been shot, the EMTs later confirmed that she had actually been stabbed in the neck. The wounds were so deep and precise that they had impacted her spine. In most murder cases, the first suspect is usually the victim's spouse or romantic partner, and this case was no different. Although Christopher Cadenhead was married to another woman, he quickly admitted that he and Melissa were having an affair. So, detectives wondered if Christopher or Melissa's ex-husband Brian Howard were involved in her death. Since Chris was having an affair, detectives presumed that his motive could have been to hide said affair from his wife. However, during the 911 call, Christopher can be overheard in the background having a conversation with his wife on his own cell phone.
Oh my God. Sherry, come to Crestview.
This call to his wife and apparent confession regarding his affair seemed to eliminate any motive for Chris to kill Melissa. So detectives decided to focus on Brian as their main suspect. Homicide detective and lead investigator Kenny Pinkard from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement described the crime scene as clean and lacking any evidence, which led him to believe that the murder was executed by a professional hitman. But why would Brian?
I just want to say, isn't that a crazy predicament to put yourself in, that you have to tell your wife that you was cheating on her just so you can uh clear yourself from a murder? Like those are your only two options. Do you see the things that people put themselves into? If you really look at it, right? Like you're in a point where you're like, listen, do I want to face a potential murder charge, or do I want to face a potential divorce? Let's see. I'm going to take the divorce for 300. Moral of the story, stop cheating on your spouses and just get out of the relationship. But let's go on.
And hire a professional hitman. About 3 years prior to Melissa's tragic death, she had gone through a divorce with her ex-husband, Brian. The separation then led to a prolonged and emotionally draining custody battle over their son. After the court ruled in Melissa's favor, Brian was visibly upset by the verdict and decided to disregard the court's decision. This initiated a second legal battle. Despite going through several hearings, the court ruled in Melissa's favor again. However, this didn't put a stop to Brian's harassment, and Melissa would go on to tell many friends that she was worried about what Brian might do next. But on the evening of Melissa's murder, Brian was at a family birthday party at a well-known local Mexican restaurant called Azteca. Multiple witnesses, including family members, other patrons, and order receipts, helped confirm that he was there. In fact, Brian had actually arranged for Melissa to drop off their son at the restaurant, which seemed to strengthen his alibi. On top of Brian's seemingly solid alibi, the forensic team was also facing significant challenges in their investigation. Not only were they unable to locate any fingerprints at the scene, but they were also unable to extract any DNA from the sweater that Melissa was wearing. Since the sweater was completely soaked in her own blood, it was nearly impossible to isolate any other DNA profiles. They did, however, notice that a recently installed security camera looked as if it may have been tampered with, and that her diary was missing. Still, they had nothing that could directly connect Brian Howard to the crime scene. Despite the absence of physical evidence, there was an abundance of circumstantial evidence potentially tying Brian to the crime. However, for the time being, the police decided to focus on other potential suspects. The third person that they wanted to speak to was a man named Russell Holbrook, who Melissa's daughter claimed had been by the house a couple days earlier. So they contacted Russell and asked him to stop by the police station for a short interview. The first thing that they asked him was when he had last seen Melissa.
When's the last time you actually saw Melissa? Days, months, a year, couple of years, yeah.
They then told him that Carrie had already advised them that he had come by the house a couple days before her mother's murder. He then immediately changed his story.
Yeah, I stopped by there.
Aside from Russell's suspicious lie, law enforcement went on to hit dead end after dead end. And without any concrete evidence pointing to one specific killer, the case of Melissa Howard went cold for 13 years. Let's now fast forward to May of 2015. A new agent, Megan Palumbo, took over the case from Detective Dennis Haley, and the investigation was reopened. Initially, investigators suspected that Melissa was assaulted from the front near the door. However, Palumbo's theory suggested that the attack occurred from behind. This theory prompted a re-examination of the DNA on the back of the sweatshirt. In doing so, investigators were now able to use a new DNA testing process, which could determine a DNA profile using a smaller sample.
I think this is crazy because the case actually went cold, and this is 13 years later with someone else picking up the cold case to find another route how to find out who was involved in this murder. And just think about it. What if this was one of the cases that nobody wanted to pick up, right? One of the cold cases that nobody wanted to pick up. The potential suspects, they was able to live 13 years clear. 13 years of living amongst regular people, probably starting families, working jobs, like if you really think about it in totality, these situations is quite horrible because she's not here. She's not here. Her daughter, or I think it's her son. Her son didn't have his mom for 13 years. Her son is a teenager now. And I don't think people really look at everything in totality, all that was lost, her life that was lost. Let's go on.
Sample size. This process located a new DNA profile on a cleaner portion of the sweater, and the profile was immediately sent in for identification. 2 weeks later, the lab results uncovered that the new DNA profile did not belong to Melissa or her ex-husband. Instead, it seemed to match the DNA of Brian's best friend, Michael Holbrook. Although not an exact match, the DNA was found to be familial, suggesting that it could belong to a close male relative of Michael. And if you've been paying attention, you may recognize Michael's last name. Russell Holbrook, Michael's brother and a friend of Brian, was one of the 3 initial suspects who were looked into back in 2006. And not only did Russell lie to the police during his interview, he was also the only suspect who had previously refused to undergo a DNA test. By this time, Russell had moved to Huntsville, Alabama, when Florida detectives arrived at his doorstep with a warrant to obtain his DNA. Detective Ralph Garrett noticed a dramatic change in Russell's demeanor, stating that it looked like his heart leaped from his chest into his throat. The results of the DNA test confirmed that the DNA found on the sweater was an exact match to Russell's DNA, marking a significant breakthrough in the investigation. But now there was another question. Was Michael with Russell when the murder took place? A surveillance video obtained from a local Walmart captured the Holbrook brothers together shortly after the time of the murder. In the footage, Michael can be observed examining his hands, possibly indicating the presence of blood on them. When confronted with this footage, Michael told the police that the two had gone to the store to purchase medicine for Russell's girlfriend's child, and that he was only looking at the dry skin on his hands. As the investigators closed in on the brothers, a warrant was obtained to tap both of their phones. Utilizing a technique referred to as tickling the wire, detectives strategically leaked details regarding the DNA results to some of Michael's friends. Their aim was to have that information get back to Michael and provoke a phone call between the brothers that could offer crucial insights into the case. What you're about to hear is a phone conversation between Russell and Michael. Russell now makes it very clear that he did in fact visit Melissa's home just 2 days prior to her death.
Can you talk? Yeah, I got a few minutes. I went to her house and talked to her.
Went to Missy's house?
Yeah.
So you've been to her house before?
Yes.
So I mean, then it's possible that your DNA's in her house.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have been all over hers.
No, of course not. It's over there getting you a piece, but
yeah, I wish. Oh man, it's like we said, they're trying to scare me. So now they're telling everybody in Okaloosa County that they have me dead to rights.
No, he says they got some new DNA technology. He showed me a paper saying they have your DNA in multiple places on her body, and that I have put myself with you. But
right.
He showed me, yeah, he had a paper about it. You're 1 in 39 million. Your DNA was all over her body. Yada, yada, yada.
Hey, Karen.
I mean, that doesn't make sense. I mean, it don't make sense. And that's what I told him. It didn't make sense to me. And I kept saying, well, what's all this got to do with me? And he just kept saying, well, you know, we got you on video with him at Walmart, so you was there too. He told me, he said, you know, we just wanted to give you this one last chance, you know, to give a statement. And I was just saying I was with you to protect you from your wife.
Well, they're trying to say you and I planned it,
right?
Premeditating. So then they get you as principal and get me as capital.
Although they spoke rather cryptically, detectives believed that this conversation suggested that the two men acted together. However, at this point in the investigation, the detectives had only gathered sufficient evidence against Russell to secure a warrant for his arrest. On November 8, 2016, Russell Holbrook was formally charged with the first-degree murder of Melissa Howard.
A Florida grand jury has returned an indictment in a murder case involving...
Okay, so I think that's quite weird, right? You randomly just go and see this woman. Why was you even at her house? Right? Like, that's my thing. Why was you even at her at the house to go visit her? So, and then I find it quite funny how they were actually talking about the victim. They're talking about her like a piece of ass. They didn't have no respect for her, right? And even they showed that they didn't have no respect for her in death. Then they're at Walmart around the area where, you know, her house is at. Why are you over there? You know, like these are the things that you have to play in there. And then it doesn't make no sense for your DNA to show up, right? If you didn't, I don't know, did you have sex with her? You know what I'm saying? Did you give her a hug when you came visit and talk to her? Like, there's a reason why that your DNA is there. If you didn't have no dealings with her, if you didn't touch her, your DNA wouldn't have been found on her back of her shirt. And I'm glad that the actual new forensic expert came in and realized that no, forensic, y'all was doing it all wrong. Y'all was examining the front of her shirt where all her blood is at, which makes it inclusive. So you couldn't get any DNA. Check the back of the shirt where there is no splatter or very small splatter of her DNA and see if any DNA is there. But yeah, their call together was very cryptic. And even when he said, oh, premeditated, like you're already thinking about what the prosecutor would potentially try to charge you with in regards of this woman's murder, right? And then how you would be a capital and your brother would be principal. Those are very telling things that they are coded. It's a very coded language, right? Let's go on. This is crazy.
A local woman, Melissa Howard, that had gone unsolved for almost 13 years. David Russell Holbrook Jr. was arrested in Alabama and returned today to Florida to stand trial on charges for first-degree murder.
Detectives hoped that Russell would negotiate a plea deal and, in doing so, implicate both Michael and Brian. They were convinced that Brian had solicited the Holbrook brothers to murder Melissa Howard. During Brian's interview at the time of the murder, Brian made a peculiar statement. There was a rumor that I was supposed to kill Russell's wife, and in return, Russell was supposed to kill my wife. This odd remark led officers to suspect that this might have indeed been the plan. Russell rejected any plea deal, refused to incriminate others, and was prepared to proceed to trial. On February 19, 2019, 13 years after the murder of Melissa Howard, Russell Holbrook's trial finally began. Clifton Drake, the state attorney, began his opening statement by presenting the connections between Melissa Howard and the two significant men in her life at the time of her tragic death. The backdrop to this case was a bitter custody dispute between the former couple, which Melissa had won. Drake pointed out that Melissa was set to assume custody on the very day of her untimely death, a fact he stressed to the jurors.
You will hear through the course of the trial that there was an ongoing custody battle between Brian Howard and Melissa Howard.
So I'm wondering, are the prosecutors also including the ex-husband? Because that statement of making a joke saying I was supposed to kill Russell's wife and you were supposed to kill mine, that alludes to me that maybe the ex-husband did reach out to you because he knew that you was dealing with his wife before when they were not together or they were separated. Did reach out to you and say, hey, you know, can you take care of this for me? Because we had a rough divorce process and she won and she's going to take my baby away from me and I can't have that. I'm starting to wonder are they going to include him into it or have they found anything to pin the ex-husband into the situation? I'm wondering because I haven't seen this case before. But let's go on. Let's hear what the prosecutor is going to say.
Over primary custody of Taylor. He was about 11 years old at the time. Primary custody was with Brian Howard, and Melissa Howard was seeking to have primary custody with her.
Drake addressed the pivotal role of DNA findings in building the case against Russell. While he acknowledged that some of the DNA samples had encountered contamination, Drake sought to play down the impact of this issue on the case's validity.
You will hear testimony from Jennifer Hattler that when she compared Russell Holbrook's DNA to the male DNA on Melissa Howard's sweatshirt, it matched. You will hear her testify that the frequency of occurrence of those two being a match is 1 in 39 million people. You will also learn, during my case, maybe during the defense, that a DNA contamination occurred in this case. And I will be presenting testimony of exactly what happened, and you will hear Ms. Hattler explain what happened, what it means, and how it was dealt with.
The argument that DNA test results may be contaminated is often used by defense attorneys as a core tactic to challenge the validity of a DNA match. This piece of information played a crucial role in Holbrook's defense, with defense attorney John Jarvis highlighting it during his opening statement.
They admit that there was a contamination done by this very analyst.
It was very smart and wise for the prosecutor to mention that. If they did not mention that, then they would not have been able to, look forthcoming to the jury or the judge about how they're presenting their case. And they knew that the defense attorney was going to automatically lead with that. And if they would have left it out, it would have made them look like they're untruthful and they're just trying to throw things together to make it stick. So this is why the prosecutor decided to, quote unquote, I would say, tell on themselves that the evidence could have been tampered with. Let's go on.
I think that testimony is going to be out there, that a contamination occurred during this investigation of this trial. Russell was at her house 2 days prior. His DNA, touch DNA, could have been left there. He could have sat on the couch, and he could have left some DNA there, or any other ways could have been left there. And Melissa Howard could have sat down on the same couch, and I think the evidence is going to show that's a possibility that could have occurred.
On top of the questionable DNA evidence, Jarvis also went on to point out that no clear motive had been established as to why exactly Russell Holbrook would want to murder Melissa.
We're all unable to produce a motive for Russell to commit this crime. 13 years, could produce one. No motive, absolutely no motive.
The defense then wrapped up their case and asked the jury for a verdict of not guilty. Going back to the DNA, the prosecution then called senior crime lab analyst Jennifer Hattler to the stand. Jennifer explained to the jury that the contamination was quickly identified and that the evidence should still be trusted.
My name is Jennifer Hattler.
Ms. Hattler, where are you employed?
I'm employed at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement in the Biology and DNA section.
Mrs. Hattler, we've talked about a contamination that occurred in this case. Is that correct?
Yes.
It turns out that the contamination was actually from a pair of scissors that had not yet been cleaned after being used in a different investigation. Once she realized the error, she used a second sample that was not contaminated and testified that she felt the evidence was enough to confirm Russell's presence at the crime scene.
The partial foreign DNA profile matched the DNA profile from David Russell Holbrook. The frequency of occurrence of the partial DNA profile for unrelated individuals is 1 in 39 million.
After explaining the contamination issue, the prosecution directed their focus onto witness testimony. Carrie Winkler, Melissa's daughter, who was just 15 years old at the time, was the first person to discover Melissa's lifeless body. During the trial, she was asked about that tragic moment.
What happened once the door was opened? It's okay, ma'am. Take your time.
Once we were able to open the door, I went into the front foyer and I turned the light on.
What did you see once there was better light?
My mom lying there.
Could you describe the layout of what you could see and where you saw your mom's body?
The foyer is in the very front, which opens up to the living room. And we had a huge entertainment center on the back wall, and she was lying on the wall all the way across.
What did you do once you realized that your mom was there?
I ran back out.
After explaining the heartbreaking events of that evening, she was asked if Russell had spent any other time at their house other than the visit that took place just 2 days before the murder.
Was there any other time that Russell was at your house other than that Wednesday night?
No.
Why not?
Russell was not allowed at our house. He was considered one of Brian Howard's friends, and my mother was going through a custody battle with Brian Howard. He had made several threats on her life. She considered Russell to be his friend and dangerous. She said that she had caught him at her house before with a gas can, and I was to never let him nor any of Brian's friends at our home, inside the home, ever.
As Carrie's questioning wrapped up, the prosecution's case against Russell seemed stronger than ever, and that's when Melissa's married boyfriend was called to the stand.
How long had you been seeing Melissa Howard before she died?
Right at 3 months. Exactly 3 months, I believe.
What time roughly did you arrive at Melissa's house?
I believe it was 11:13.
Was anyone there when you arrived?
Yes, her daughter Carrie and a guy she had gone on a date with, Daniel, was under the front porch light, huddled together. And Carrie said that they can't get her to answer the door, but we could.
So before we go on, the daughter's confession was a gold mine to the prosecutor, because it finally gave motive to why that man could have potentially unalived this woman. The simple fact is that he went over there to talk to her, but that girl was instructed by her mother that that man has no business being at the house. Don't ever let him in the house when you're there or anything like that. And the simple fact is of his connection to someone that she's beefing with or arguing with or having a bad relationship with, and said that he was a dangerous man. That is like a golden ticket right there, right? Because now it leads up to, what was you even doing there? Why did you go and visit this woman when she did not want you there? She instructed her daughter that you were not even supposed to be there. She even informed your daughter that you tried to come in the house uninvited before. So it definitely gave motive without because before they really didn't have motive. I didn't really understand the connection myself. Why would they want to do this? And obviously we could tell that the way how she was unalive was personal. It was not just like a heat of a moment. It was not some robbery and ransacking the house. This was a personal situation. To stab someone with that amount of force, and the way how she bled out, and you could tell by the shirt, she bled out within seconds. Yeah, it was a golden ticket. It was definitely a golden ticket right there. Yes, exactly. Let's make sure that we hitting the like button, guys. I really appreciate you. It definitely helps the channel. Just hit me a thumbs up, thumbs down. It still helps the channel, and I truly appreciate you. Let's go on with his with this guy saying his story.
Could hear her phone ringing inside. And I went around to the left side of the house to see if her bathroom light was on, and it wasn't. By the time I turned around and started to head back to the front, Daniel had jimmied the front door lock loose with a FedEx card. And when my eyes did adjust, I could see Melissa lying on the floor in the living room.
What was your reaction when you saw her?
At first, I thought she had a seizure or something medically was wrong.
Did there come a point where you thought something different had happened?
Yes, sir. I walked in, and the closer I got to her, I could tell that there was a pool of blood around her head. She was face down.
Did anyone call 911?
I did.
What phone did you use?
I used Carrie's phone because I believe I asked her to call, and she, I don't know if she was shaking and couldn't call, but I remember taking the phone from her and calling 911.
Although his testimony seemed very genuine, Russell's attorneys worked to paint Chris as an alternative suspect. They did this by focusing on Christopher's extramarital affair, suggesting that it could have been a motive for the murder.
I guess Melissa Howard knew that you were married, is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And there was some talk that you were going to be leaving your wife, isn't that correct?
Yes, sir. I was pretty much heading out the door. Yes, sir.
Okay. And you had kind of indicated to her, Miss Melissa Howard, that you wanted to be with her, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, were you ever aware of any pregnancy tests being taken?
I was not.
Okay. Were you ever discussed, or had any law enforcement officers ever confront you with that, the possibility that there might have been some pregnancy tests?
When I was my first statement at the end of January, it was brought up about that, and I had nothing about it because she had told me her tubes were tied, and her neighbor said that she had to take that to something to do with her meds she was taking. She had to take a pregnancy test after taking meds. I don't know what meds.
But you were confronted by FDLE agents with the possibility that she was taking a pregnancy test, or they asked you about that, didn't they?
They asked me if I knew that there was one in the garbage can, and I had no idea.
But you were questioned on it?
Yes, they did ask me about it.
All right.
The defense then brings up the clip found in the background of the 911 call, where Chris can be heard telling his wife about the murder. This is the clip, to be precise.
Oh my God. Sherry, come to crush you.
Using this clip, they then push Chris even more by focusing on the circumstances surrounding his confession to his wife about the affair.
She didn't know what you were doing over at the dead woman's house either, did she?
She had no idea.
But so she finds out on this night that you're having an affair, and not only are you having an affair, but you're having an affair with this dead woman that you discover. Is that right?
Yes.
Although there is a possibility that this push to paint Chris as an alternative suspect was successful, at this point, the prosecution still seemed to be coming out on top. The next person called to the stand was Melissa's son, Taylor Howard, now 20 years old and had been raised by his dad, Brian, following the death of his mother.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Taylor Howard, Melissa Howard's son.
Mr. Howard, could you angle that microphone towards you a little bit? It bends a little bit. Thank
Yes,
you,
sir. No problem.
How old are you, sir?
I'm 24.
How old were you in January of 2006?
I was 11.
What grade were you in?
I was in 4th grade.
The prosecution asked him to recount the details of his last interaction with Melissa.
I'd like to ask you specifically about Friday, January 6th of 2006.
Yes, sir.
When did you see her?
I went home that day after school. She got off work a couple hours after, and she came home, and I was there for a couple hours. We played some board games, and she wound up taking me to a dinner with my dad and his side of the family, and that was the last time I seen her.
Do you remember what kinds of games that you were playing with your mom?
Yes, sir. We're playing Jenga, and we're playing Connect 4 as well. I think we're playing Life, a couple of different board games.
When your mom dropped you off, can you just describe how that exchange went?
Very emotional. She was very upset. I knew something was off that night. My dad stayed in his vehicle, and they exchanged words across the parking lot. I didn't want to leave her. She was really upset, and I wound up getting in the truck with my dad.
Taylor's testimony introduced the defense's suggestion that perhaps his father, Brian, was another alternative suspect that could have been the killer that night. On cross-examination, they make this theory very clear by focusing on Brian's alibi, the Azteca Mexican restaurant.
The Azteca restaurant is actually very close in proximity to your mom's house, is it not?
I find it so disturbing sometimes when the loved ones of a person who lost their life to a crime, when they have to stand up there and tell what they know or try to remember what they know, something traumatic, right? He was 11 years old and the daughter was a teenager, and And he didn't even get to say goodbye to his mom, right? He didn't even get to say goodbye to her. And the last time he saw her, she was upset and distraught. And he, being her little man, he didn't want to leave her, but he sucked it up and went to go spend time with his father's family. I know that hurts, like you could tell that definitely hurt him, that, that was the last interaction that he had with his mother, and the last time, he saw her, and then she wasn't really in the best shape, right? She wasn't emotionally in the best shape. And but I knew that they wanted to bring the children on, especially with the defense attorney, because now they could start to ask about the whereabouts of the father. The whole point is to get their client off the hook, right? So the alibi of the Mexican restaurant, that's the alibi that the father is using, saying that he could have been there because he was at some party, a family party. However, that doesn't mean just because you was at the family party and that's where she dropped the son off, that doesn't mean that you stayed there the whole entire time, right? People could say that they saw you there, but you could have dipped out within that time and then go right back to the party. So this is what the defense attorney is going to lead on, and this is what they're going to harp on, especially with the son, to ask him, hey, did your father step out for a bit and come back for a bit? Did he come like an hour later? And so those are things that weren't asked 13 years ago. So let's see what they do.
Yes, sir. Very close.
Yes, sir.
Now, you say when you got home that evening, do you know when you got home?
I don't recall.
Don't recall the exact time?
Yes, sir.
But you just recall that your dad went upstairs?
Yes, sir.
And nobody saw him after that?
Yes, sir.
That's all the questions I have.
Both attorneys wrapped up their cases and prepared for their closing arguments. The state prosecutor went first and highlighted that despite the questions surrounding the DNA results, there was enough substantial evidence that identified Russell as the killer. For instance, the inconsistencies in his story throughout the police interrogations, coupled with his efforts to intimidate Melissa prior to her tragic death, and the surveillance footage of him and his brother at the nearby Walmart. He also attributed Russell's physical stature and military background as contributing factors that enabled him to inflict stab wounds that led to her death. The defense attorney contended that the prosecutors failed to provide a motive for the murder. There was no indication that Russell had benefited from the death of Brian Howard's ex-wife, highlighting that the state had yet to establish the identity of Melissa's killer. On February 27, 2019, Russell Holbrook was read his verdict.
Court will publish the verdict at this time. The defendant will rise.
We, the jury, find as follows as to the offense charged in the indictment: guilty of first-degree premeditated murder as charged in the indictment. So say we all this 27th day of February 2019.
Russell Holbrook was convicted of the first-degree murder of Melissa Howard. He was sentenced to life in prison in the state of Florida Department of Corrections. After the final verdict, Melissa's family and the detectives who worked on the case continued to have suspicions that Russell may not have acted alone. That brings us right back to the interrogation footage at the beginning of this video. The person in this footage is actually Jordan Victoria Howard, the new wife of Brian Howard. This interview took place just 3 months after Russell's conviction.
So, Ms. Howard, what brings you here?
I'm scared that my husband's going to kill me.
Okay. And your husband is?
Brian Howard.
The lead detective of the Melissa Howard case, Megan Palumbo, was immediately brought into the room to help with the questioning.
We know what happened in 2006. So we don't want that to happen to you. Okay? And we can't undo that, but we can try to fix this.
So you're just afraid?
I know that he killed Melissa. I know that he did that. I know that he'll do that.
Whoa. How do you know that?
Because I know.
Well, all right, you're making a comment. How do you know?
Because he told me.
He didn't tell me that Russell's the one that actually did it.
Mm-hmm.
He said some other name, I'm sure, just to cover Russell.
Okay.
But he told me that he hired someone to do it.
Jordan claimed that Brian had arranged for someone else to kill Melissa. Brian Howard was later arrested and convicted of a misdemeanor charge of domestic abuse. He continues to deny any involvement in his ex-wife's murder. Neither he nor Michael have been charged in that case, as Russell remains behind bars for life.
That is crazy. That is so crazy. I was not expecting that. So it seemed like, so he got charged for battery and assault on his new wife, but his new wife came in and confirmed that he actually had someone kill his ex-wife. And she knew, because not only did he tell her, he probably threatened her that you would go out just like Melissa if you don't do what I tell you to do or whatever not. That is really crazy. That is some wicked, wicked stuff. That blew my mind. If y'all don't understand how flabbergasted I am, I really am. Because I was wondering about, in the beginning when they showed that clip of that conversation, I was wondering, who is this lady and who is she talking about? But now we know who she was talking about. She's talking about she married a man who got away with actually killing his last wife. And somebody else, we don't know whether or not, if, well, we kind of do confirm that he hired Russell to kill his wife, but he's not even serving time for that. That is crazy. That is extremely crazy. All right, guys. So I have one more video for you guys, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Please make sure you're hitting the like button. Please comment later on. Tell me about any cases that you might be interested in that you would like to review with me, and also share out this live stream to anyone that you might believe is interested in looking at these cases. These are old cases, but I really think that sometimes it's always good to go back and look at old cases, because you learn from, things. We learn from mistakes. We learn from things of trial and error. So it's always good. It's always good to go back and look at those things. All right. So the last case that I have for you guys is potentially when a wife accidentally slips up and says something that only the murderer would know. And we're going to take a look into this one, okay? So thank you so much for rocking out. Here we go.
Ah, man! Timmy, stop! Please, Timmy, I'm dying! No, please! Stab in my neck, man!
After a vicious attack by his wife Tempest, 27-year-old Vincent Taylor escaped in a desperate bid to save his life. But what followed next turned his entire world upside down.
He pushed me so far that my feet come off the ground and I'm laying on the ground. He got on top of me and started punching me repeatedly.
Once the victim, now a suspect, what appeared to be a minor slip-up revealed a reality far more terrifying than what anyone could have imagined.
So I'm trying to chase him and get my phone after he's already assaulted me. And I went and grabbed my knife. And I hit at him.
You're portraying him as an abuser. Most abusers don't run from the fight.
If she's chasing him with the knife, then there's no defense to that. She's not the victim in that case. And she's chasing him up and down the street.
I'm gonna kill you.
Because I'm taking my...
I'm gonna kill you.
Help! Help!
On January 18th, 2020, at 9:30 p.m., police received a chilling 911 call from a neighbor reporting hearing a man desperately shouting for help. Little did they know, this was only the beginning of one of the most disturbing cases they'd ever encounter. When officers arrived, they were first met with a woman whose husband was allegedly noticed running on streets and screaming.
Yeah, what's going on?
My husband and I got into it, and my kids are upstairs in their room. But he was coming at me. I'm clearly not able to move this.
Let's go in the house. Let's go in the house.
I don't want my kids to.
Well, I ain't standing out here in the rain.
As soon as they stepped into the house, the officers found Tempest standing on crutches. She seemed anxious, and without waiting for questions, began explaining what had happened.
Hey, what happened tonight?
It's been all day.
All right, calm down. Calm down. Come sit down on the couch, all right?
She's on crutches, and she then begins to explain that she and her husband had had an altercation.
I come downstairs, and he's packing all his stuff. Get out. I'm leaving. I said, okay, fine, then leave. And he gets in my face again. He's foaming at the mouth. I said, see, that's why I can't talk to you. You're just so aggressive, like a rabid dog. He pushed me so far that my feet come off the ground and I'm laying on the ground. He got on top of me and started punching me repeatedly.
Punching you where?
On my arm. I was like this in the prayer position. So he's pushing me and punching me, and he punched me in my face, and I said, I cannot see.
The person Tempest alleged to have brutally beaten her was none other than her own husband, Vincent.
This is not the first time that I had to call the police on him, and he got arrested for that before.
What she's telling the officers is that I'm the victim and Vincent is this big bad boogeyman.
Do you have any marks, cuts or anything?
I want to take a look at your arms. You said he bit you right there?
He bit me on my side.
Okay, I want to look at your face, so close your eyes.
As the officers examined her injuries, they noticed something strange. Despite her story of a vicious attack, they couldn't find any wounds that matched the severity of what.
So there's two things that's happening, all right? So it seemed like she was in a hostile, toxic marriage. There has been cases of DV. But looking at her, and this is with my untrained eye, she doesn't look like she was viciously beaten, right? I don't see any bruises on her necessarily. She's looking for the longest for some potential bite that's on her side. And at one point she was able to get away, right? This is why she's able to speak with the police. So I'm hoping that after she was able to get away, she was able to speak with the police. However, if you saw in the beginning, those screams and all that stuff like that was coming from her husband, because she stabbed her husband with a knife in his neck. You know, I know that she's probably going to say that this is self-defense, but we're going to look more into it. It doesn't seem like it was self-defense when she did it. It looked like she probably struck him with a weapon out of a fit of rage. And we're going to look a little bit more into this story.
What she described, however, then she slipped up and revealed such information which blurred the lines between a victim and attacker.
So I'm trying to chase him during my phone after he's already assaulted me. And I went and grabbed my knife. And I hit at him.
Do you know where you stabbed him at?
I know. I didn't see anything. I just was trying to get him off.
She doesn't know.
In just seconds, Tempest's story flipped, and she wasn't only a...
Okay, so right then and there, she just told on herself. She said that he had her phone, right? She said that he had her phone. She went and got her knife, and then she said she just started wailing on him. So at that point, when you used the weapon on him, it was not self-defense. Your whole self-defense case went right out of the window, ma'am. Right out of the window. Because at this time, your life was not in danger. He had your phone. So freaking what? So freaking what? Call the cops. Have them give him your phone back if you can't get your phone back from him as a grown adult. That's what you do. You don't take out your knife and then start swailing and wailing on him to get your knife. And now you don't even know if you saying, "Oh, I don't even know if where I hit him at or she said hit him, and she purposely said I hit him. She didn't say I stabbed him. Did y'all catch that? Did y'all catch that? She didn't say I stabbed him. She said I hit him, right? But you let them know that you went and you pulled out your knife. So you never said that you dropped your knife and that you started hitting him. You never said any of that. You're just literally trying to say that you hit him to make it seem like you didn't stab him. You're trying to remove yourself from that. Abdar, hi, how you doing? I will pause and play the video however I see fit. Okay? Thank you so much for stopping by. Now, She got caught right there. That is not self-defense. That is not self-defense at all. There's no self-defense case with that one. And she said it herself. But let's go on now.
Victim, she was also the attacker, having stabbed her husband multiple times. But why? Her version of events weren't adding up, and the police knew they needed to find Vincent, who had likely been severely injured after the attack. They quickly started searching for him, and it didn't take long before they received another 911 call, this time from DeKalb County. This call came in shortly after the first 911 call made by the neighbor, and it brought some serious news that would soon lead them to the shocking truth.
They need police and ambulance at this gas station because there is a man who is severely injured and he needs help.
When EMT arrived at the gas station, the male was bleeding. He did have a small puncture wound on the left side of his collarbone.
After running the plates on the car, the police confirmed that the victim was actually Vincent Taylor. He was rushed to Grady Memorial Hospital, but despite the efforts to save him, he was pronounced dead at 10:46 p.m.
When the detective told me on the phone that my son was in critical condition with a knife wound to his neck, I can't explain to you how I knew, but I knew he was dead. I knew it. I could feel it. I remember dropping the phone. I remember dropping to my knees. I'm not sure how I got there, but I know I drove, but I don't remember the trip. I remember they let me see him, and when I viewed the body, he was like he was sleeping. He was in the same clothes. And I saw him in, and I passed out. I just passed out.
Back at the scene, Tempest was detained and taken to the clinic.
I feel so sorry for that dad. I really do. You can see his heart is broken, completely broken. And it's bad because I know he probably, the victim, he panicked, right? He panicked, he felt the wound, he felt that he got stabbed, and he just wanted to run and get help. And sometimes when you're in that type of, I mean, thank God I haven't experienced, and knock on wood, I haven't experienced being stabbed in that way or anything like that. But the amount of anxiety that he was going through, he just wanted to go get help. He didn't even know that he ran that far. You ran all the way to the gas station, right? You should have ran to the next house, knocked on the door and see if they can call 911. All of that running to the gas station, you was literally pumping out blood out of your neck the whole entire time. The whole entire time, which made you start to get, to get dizzy and completely collapse. So sad. So sad, man. Let's go on.
Clayton County Police Station for questioning by detectives. Meanwhile, the officers who remained at the scene began talking to the neighbors, trying to gather more information.
Yeah, she did.
I've gotten a verbal statement from her, which is, I heard screaming, so I called the police. If anybody else comes, just write their name down so I can put it on the log, and I'll go down there and get a statement.
One of the neighbors came forward, telling the police she'd heard screaming coming from the house. She'd seen Tempest chasing Vincent down the street, and what stood out was that Tempest wasn't using her crutches. This was a crucial detail, as the police had suspected all along that Tempest had been using them to appear weak and innocent, and this sighting confirmed their suspicions. At 3 a.m., Tempest's interview at the police station finally began.
We did not initially reveal to Tempest that Vincent had passed away.
All right, so you and your husband, do you call him Vincent? And Vince.
We wanted to go ahead and get the information that.
Yeah, so she sat up there and she tried to make herself seem like she was more harmed, but they caught her on video walking just fine without the crutches. So she probably had those crutches from a prior incident, maybe twisting her ankle or something like that. And she pulled them out as if, he was literally beating up a woman who was pretty much handicapped at that particular time. This is getting really, really, really spicy. Really spicy. But let's go on.
That we needed, and then present her with the information that he had passed away.
He's punching you, he bit you, he kicked you. You got up and you grabbed a knife. What was he doing when you grabbed a knife?
I don't know. I don't know.
The detectives methodically walked Tempest through the details of the incident, but her story didn't hold up. She claimed she was curled up on the floor, trying to protect herself from Vincent's blows, when suddenly he jumped up. Seizing the opportunity, she said she ran to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and chased him down to stab him. But the sequence of events didn't add up. Why would she leave her defensive position to chase him with a knife if she was truly in danger? The inconsistencies in her story raised serious doubts, making it clear that something was seriously off.
So you said you were outside. What happened outside?
I don't remember. That's where the incident happened, where I hit him with the knife, but I don't remember.
Okay. So you get the knife from the kitchen. You don't remember what happened, but when he tells you, you hit me, you're outside.
That's correct.
Okay.
Tempest explained that the stabbing actually took place outside as she chased Vincent down with a knife. But her story didn't add up. If she'd been chasing him, it clearly contradicted her claim of self-defense. An abuser doesn't run away from their victim. They silence them or overpower them. But if Tempest...
Right, like this is what I'm saying. It's not self-defense. It cannot be self-defense. You was chasing him at one point. So this is not to say that he was not how can I put this? This is not to say that he wasn't an aggressor at one point in this incident. He could have been the aggressor in the beginning. Yes, he could have put his hands on you. But once that stopped, and you go after him and he's running away from him, you now become the aggressor. And people have to realize that. You don't just get to, I know how it feels, right? Especially if someone do you wrong and stuff like that. You're like, I don't care. I want to do whatever. But at the end of the day, you really can't do whatever, right? And have the law back you up, right? So you could do whatever, right? You could do whatever you want. You could take this person's life. You feel like you have the right to take this person's life and however say fit because they mess with you. But guess what? You're not going to get the backing of the law when you take matters into your own hand. At that point, you are the aggressor if he's running away from you because you now have a knife. And also it shows that you weren't afraid at that point, right? So you wasn't fearful of your life at that point. So your self-defense case is completely over because he could still be alive if you weren't chasing him down with a knife and you didn't stab him with the knife in his collarbone, right? And this is how any detective, any judge, or any jury is going to look at this situation. They're not going to look for the simple fact that maybe you could have been getting whoops upside your head for months, even a year, for however long you've been in this relationship with this person. That's not what they're going to consider. They're going to consider the injured person in the situation or the victim. And they're going to look at it as, could this victim's life been saved if you didn't do A, B, C, or D? That's how they're going to look at it. Let's go on.
Was actively chasing Vincent. It was obvious she wasn't trying to protect herself. On the contrary, it seemed like she was intentionally going after him, which raised serious doubts about her version of events.
Well, we're just going to regroup and check with the officers that are on scene and see if they have anything else for us, and then we'll come back in. Okay. Do you need anything?
Even after all the drama that Tempest put on, detectives weren't ready to buy her story. If Tempest was truly a victim in this ordeal, something didn't add up, raising serious questions. What could have led to such a violent outcome?
Alright, so Vince did not survive his injury. Excuse me? He passed away.
No. When I get there.
Oh, why couldn't it have been me? Why couldn't it have been me?
It was pandemonium. And that just seemed real contrived.
He's the only man I ever loved.
She still painted herself as the victim.
What am I gonna do? What am I?
The semantics, right? The semantics, man. She's doing the most, right? She's putting on a real performance, and it's crazy for her to put on this type of performance when you know that you consciously went and got a knife and you consciously went and chased him down to stab him. What did you expect was going to happen by stabbing someone? That's all intent to bodily harm someone, potentially lose their lives. And this whole, oh my God, I can't believe it. I wish it was me. No, you didn't. You don't wish it was you, because your whole case from the beginning that all of this transpired due to self-defense. So if you're defending your life, you don't wish that was you. You don't wish that was you. I don't know. It really rubs me the wrong way, right? It does. It rubs me the wrong way. Like, I can understand having remorse. Maybe you didn't expect something like that to happen, for it to go that far. But you had all intent to harm this man, and you harmed him. You harmed him to the point where he's not here anymore. Let's go on.
To understand it all, they needed to go back to the beginning and uncover the truth about their relationship. It all started in 2010 when Vincent enrolled at the Art Institute of Atlanta to study audio production.
In the first 6 months of Vincent being at the Art Institute is when he met Tempest and she came into the picture. When Vincent and Tempest started dating, they spent pretty much every day together. It seemed to make sense. They got along. She was very funny and goofy like him as well. And she was pretty much down for whatever, we wanted to do, where we wanted to hang out, where we wanted to eat. She just fit in.
But not everyone saw their relationship in a positive light. From the start, something felt off about Tempest being around.
Vincent came over to the house and he brought Tempest with him. And that was the first time I had ever met her. I thought she was quiet, very reserved. She wasn't someone that you could easily know.
Couldn't get a lot out of her at the time, which concerned me. I was saying, while you're at school, kind of keep an eye on Vincent, make sure, he stays focused or whatever. And then I think her comment was, I don't have time to look out for him. I gotta look out for myself. It was about her. It wasn't about him. And that's what I didn't like in the beginning.
That wasn't the only thing to be concerned about. Vincent had also dropped out of college and began taking odd jobs, all to please Tempest and take care of her. He was completely smitten with her, but as their relation progressed, things started to change. About a year in, Vincent began opening up about the problems he was having with Tempest.
Vince used to confide in me a lot about how quickly Tempest could just snap at the push of a button. These mood swings don't sound like normal behavior.
It wasn't just emotional tension. There were signs of physical fights too.
I remember I went on this trip to Miami. When I came back, you could tell there was a fight at the house because there were some holes in the doors. I confronted him with that, and he was very quiet about who did what. He just said they had an argument, and he did not disclose what happened there. So that's where I knew that something's not right with this relationship. This is a bad relationship.
Despite everything, Vincent was determined to make his relationship with Tempest work. He moved in with her and her family, hoping things would improve. Soon, they welcomed their first child, and for a while, it seemed like parenthood might bring them closer and soften the tension between them.
Where you going? Where you going?
That moment that their daughter was born was probably one of the most pure and beautiful moments between the two. That was the first time that they shared something, you know, on that level. Him being a dad really transformed him into the man that he was supposed to become.
For a while, everything seemed fine as they settled into their new life, but soon, Tempest's behavior began to change. Her mood swings grew more intense, and she became increasingly erratic. What started as occasional tension soon turned into daily abuse, with Tempest beating Vincent almost every day. But things were about to take a darker turn. One day, during a heated argument, Tempest took it too far. She hid Vincent's car keys and did everything she could to stop him from going to work.
Vincent called me. He was like, "Dad, she's jumping on my car. She won't move out the way. I can't get to work." And I'm helpless. I mean, I'm at work.
His boss didn't really have any more room for excuses. He ended up losing his job.
I just don't understand how somebody could love somebody and then do the things that Tempest did. I feel like she had a lot of control over him, almost like he was in a trance at times. And I felt like she could hurt him.
Everyone could see the danger Vincent was in, but despite all the problems, he chose.
Woo! Okay. Let's see. Let's see. Rain Mushroom, go to sleep. Have a nice night, okay? Thank you for stopping by. Let's see. Sonica said, this sounds more like she was an abusive narcissist, not a victim. And yeah, I agree. Barry said, okay, yeah, you gotta go to work. Take care, Barry. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you. Yeah, she seemed like she's very controlling. She seems like a narcissist. And I'm quite frankly, even just looking at her right now with this still image, she looked kind of crazy, right? She looks kind of crazy. They said that she had mood swings. So I want to know whether or not if she was ever on any form of medication before. I want to know whether or not if she was diagnosed with schizophrenia or split personality disorder. You could definitely tell that she has antisocial behavior personality just from the things that they said that she was doing. And it seems that Vincent, he seemed like a person who needed to be the hero, right? He needed to save the day. And one of the reasons why he fell in love with her, right? He felt that she was like she was a wounded bird, and all she needed was tender love and care. And then her wing would heal, and she would fly and soar into the sky. And it made him happy to be that for someone. And it seems that's why he took a lot of her mess throughout this marriage and stuff like that. That's what it looks like. Whew. Yeah, them eyes, the eyes, woo, they're creepy. They're really creepy. She looks really like Carrie. Like, you remember the movie Carrie? I don't know, depending on your age. Y'all remember the Carrie, that stare? That's what she looked like. All right, let's go on.
Was to stay with Tempest. In the winter of 2016, Vincent reached a breaking point. He called his mother, Robin Brown, telling her he was exhausted and couldn't take it anymore. He wanted a divorce from Tempest. This gave his family a glimmer of hope, as they thought he would finally be free from the toxic relationship and could start over. Robin, who owned property in Rex, Georgia, offered him a place to stay and assured him that she'd help him fund a lawyer for the divorce. This offer seemed like a fresh start for Vincent, and he felt relieved and optimistic about the future. But just when it seemed like things were looking up, everything came crashing down.
And 1 week later, she moved in. And he says, Mom, I'm not moving forward with the divorce. Okay, here we go again. It was just a vicious cycle that he was in. He couldn't get out. He was determined that no matter how bad it is, I'm going to keep trying to show her I love her and I love the kids. He did not want to be divorced like I was. And I think that's where I wish me being divorced did not influence his decision as he got older, that he didn't want his children to be in that environment.
Vincent felt trapped in an endless cycle. He just couldn't escape. A mere 2 months later, he confided in his grandmother, Linda, about how tired he was of Tempest's erratic behavior. Desperate for peace, he asked her to leave, but Tempest's response was clear. She wasn't going anywhere. In a fit of frustration and anger, Vincent called the police, hoping they could intervene and make her leave. But what he hoped would be a solution turned into a nightmare.
She said, well, I'm not going anywhere. And so he called the police. When the police got there, one of the police officers just asked her point blank, did he hit you? And yeah, he hit me. And they haul him off. He didn't have money for an attorney. He ended up pleading guilty. So he couldn't get a decent job with this type of black mark on your record.
Months after, when Vince was on probation, she turned around and tells my sister-in-law, he didn't hit me, I just said it to get him locked up. And that's why Vincent stopped calling the police for help, because he felt that they would believe her and he'll be the one getting arrested.
Even after Tempest's alleged confession, she never retracted her statement to the police. She continued to play the victim, a role that terrified Vincent the most, as it made it even harder for anyone to believe his side of the story. Feeling completely helpless, Vincent turned to his father, Vincent Sr., for support. He called him, explaining how Tempest's constant aggression was breaking him down, and he didn't know how much longer he could take it. Vincent Sr. brought him to his home, offering him a safe place to stay, hoping he could find some peace and relief. But even there, things weren't as simple as they seemed.
Do you know, midnight he ran out my house and went back over to her? That hurt me. You hear me? That hurt me. I knew without a doubt he had.
I know that sometimes it's hard for some people, especially when they have those type of soul ties, right? And especially if he came from a house where his mother was divorced and she pretty much raised him and stuff like that, and he didn't really want to fall into that same example. He didn't want to have a failed marriage. These are things that kept him put himself back in danger, right? But you have to know when to stop, right? You can't keep on going to all your family members telling them how horrible it is and how you really can't deal with her tantrums and her abuse and stuff like that. And then you want to sneak around, you still want to smash her. You want to sneak around and you still want access to her and you hoping that she's going to change. You got to stop, right? Like, even if you was to even have access to her just to smash because she's your baby mom, is it really worth it? It's really not worth it, right? Like your father's literally telling you, like, it hurt him because he is putting you up shop, to have you have a clear thought. You don't have to deal with her. And your father was not going to let this girl up in the house, right? It was no way that she was going to be able to creep back in this house. But what did you do? You went back out towards her. I mean, I understand you have a kid with each other. You love your daughter, right? She's a baby. But you have to have strong boundaries, especially when you let everybody in your family know that all the things that's going on in your relationship, they're gonna be on your side, right? They're going to be on your side, and they're gonna make sure that they want you to be safe and okay. And you slap them in the face when you go right back out and you start dealing with this person that you said that was causing you so much pain, frustration, made you lose your job, hitting you and all the stuff like that. And after a while, that hand out or that support that you have is not going to be like that anymore. It's not going to be like that anymore because after a while, they're like, how many times that I'm supposed to continue to help you when you continue to make the same mistakes? Sometimes you have to be strong within your conviction and just stand on what you said. If you're saying that you can't do it anymore, really stand on it. You can't do it anymore. We all know that it's hard. We know that it's hard. It's not going to be easy. It is not supposed to be easy. Healing ain't easy. It never been a easy, soft landing. Healing is hard. But when you're healed, you're solid. That's why it's hard. Man.
He had no idea how much danger he was in when I did.
By 2018, Tempest had become increasingly difficult for Vincent to handle, especially when it came to spending time with his family. She wouldn't let him visit his parents without getting incredibly angry, and this constant tension pushed Vincent to distance himself from his loved ones. He stopped meeting with them, thinking it would keep the peace at home. But in doing so, Vincent made one of the biggest mistakes of his life.
The longer that they were together, the more she got to know him and really master his insecurities, she would use that and throw it back in his face, bullying him into thinking that he wasn't enough. If he threatened to leave, she would threaten to take the kids away, tell him that he wouldn't be able to see his kids if he left. Like, if Tempest was to take those children away from him, I'm afraid he wouldn't feel like he had anything to live for.
On January 18th, 2020, at 10:30 a.m., Vincent knocked on his father's door, but when his father opened it, he was stunned by what he saw.
At 10:30 in the morning, my son knocked at my door. When I answered the door, he was crying. He was scratched up real bad. He fell right into my arms. I was holding him. It's like, what's going on? He just, immediately just saying, she's just so mean, Daddy. I said, who's mean? What's going on? He's like, Tempest, she didn't want to come, so she didn't want me to come, and she was mad at me for leaving, and she just started fighting me, and she kicked me in my groin, and it still hurts, Dad, and I just can't do it anymore.
The children were still sitting in the car, and Vincent took them with him as he and his father went inside to spend the entire day together. For the first time in a long while, Vincent's lost smile returned, and he felt the warmth and comfort of his family around him. But little did they know, this would be the last time they saw Vincent smile. His life was about to change forever. Throughout the day, Tempest's repeated calls fueled her growing anger with each ring, leaving Vincent increasingly anxious.
Vince did not survive his injuries. He passed away. No. When I get there.
Oh, why couldn't it have been me? Why couldn't it have been me?
Back in the interrogation room, Tempest continued to sob for her husband's death. However, detectives had already pieced together enough evidence to reveal the truth. Vincent had been a victim all along, and Tempest was the real abuser. On the night of January 18th, her uncontrollable anger reached its peak, leading her to stab Vincent numerous times as he begged for his life. Despite the conflicting versions of events she tried to present, Tempest was charged with voluntary manslaughter.
These situations are never easy for any of us, okay? Unfortunately, we do have to charge you, all right? Okay.
So this is what we're going to do. We're going to handcuff you from behind, and we're going to take you to the squad car and take you down to the county, okay?
Okay.
However, the police knew they needed more evidence to build a stronger case against her. They obtained a search warrant for Vincent's vehicle, hoping to find something that would reveal more.
We were able to locate 3 cell phones inside there. One belonged to Vincent, one belonged to Tempest, and one belonged to their younger daughter.
What they discovered on his phone painted a clear picture of the abusive relationship between Vincent and Tempest.
In Vincent's phone, we found several text messages between him and Tempest. It appeared that their relationship was very volatile. A lot of name calling and back and forth, a lot of jealousy.
The picture was that Tempest was not this shrinking wallflower that she wanted everyone to believe. It wasn't true by the conduct. It wasn't true by the text messages. It wasn't true.
Just 8 months later, while Tempest was awaiting trial, she was released on bail. This decision angered Vincent's family, especially as Tempest began flaunting her freedom on social media. She went back to living a normal life as if nothing had happened, which only made things worse for the family.
We did get several calls from Vincent's family. They were struggling. They were struggling.
All that crying, all that semantics that she did just for her to get released and throw it in his family face about her being happy and living her best life and moving forward. And those eyes, man, yeah, she's a full on sociopath. She is a full on narc. She does not feel any remorse. All of that was fake. All of that was fake. Everything that she did that we saw in her little interview was all fake. She meant to unalive that man. And the funny thing is they gave her voluntary manslaughter because since they know that it's been a domestic violence situation, that it probably just led to its peak. That's why they did that. But I mean, shoot, for me, I would definitely give her more than that. I would give her second degree, or I would give her first degree, because she intentionally went to go get that knife. Whatever fight that they had actually ended, and she went chasing him. So to me, that's intent to harm and unalive. I would have gave her first degree. I wouldn't have given her manslaughter. But yeah, she's the worst. She just sit up there and gonna post on Facebook and everything, smiling like yo, like if I was his family member, my blood would be boiling. She probably don't even know how lucky she is, because I know there was a lot of people who would wanted to probably have words with her. You know what I'm saying? That's just crazy.
Because they were trying to process their grief while watching her live her life.
After 3 long years, the time for final justice arrived when a trial date was set for December 2023. The prosecutors began reviewing and collecting data from Tempest's phone using new technology and software, and what they discovered was shocking. They were able to retrieve a horrifying recording from the day of the murder, one that revealed the chilling truth about what had really happened and shook everyone.
No one will ever take care of you like I take care of you.
You're a horrible person. They're gonna tell the kids that I hurt them. You hurt them.
I need my phone.
No, this is
Need
not
my
your
phone.
This is hers.
It's not.
My
I
credit.
bought that phone. I bought all these phones. Give me my phone.
Stop!
I'm not even touching you, girl. Watch out.
Didn't you get in trouble for that with the police before, for taking the phone out of my hand?
I don't give a.
Using me?
I wasn't abusing you. You're abusive.
I did nothing to you.
Yes, you did.
I have not done anything to you. You just want to fight me.
No, I don't. I want to leave you.
Then leave.
That's what I'm doing.
He was convinced in his mind that, yeah, this is never going to change. This is where we're going to be. And he really was going to leave. And I don't believe that she was going to allow that to happen.
So yeah, she, like I said, they better give her first degree. Okay, they better give her first degree. You can see she lied. She lied the whole entire time. She told the police officer that he took her phone. No, he didn't take her phone. He took his phone. She's trying to say that because I guess she paid the bill, or they have like a family plan, that was her phone. And she wasn't even trying to allow him to leave. He's trying to leave out the house. He's trying to get away from her. And she wanted the video recorded to make it seem like he's hurting her and abusing her. I didn't see him touch her. I didn't see him touch her. That's not the way he's even talking to her. Is not a man who's abusive in his state of abuse. He's literally like, you're crazy and I'm trying to get the hell away from you. Move the hell away from me, woman. All right? Go that way. She walking behind him talking about, I'm going to kill you. Girl, and you videotape this, and that's how arrogant you are. I'm glad they found this video. I'm glad they found this video, because they better change them charges.
Kill you.
Because I'm taking my.
I'm gonna kill you. Sorry, son of a bitch. I'm gonna kill you.
Tempest, chill, bruh.
No.
Tempest, chill. Chill, Tempest, chill, man. Please, man, chill.
No.
Stop.
You got me all.
Stop.
Who the fuck do you think I am?
Stop.
Who do you think I am?
Stab in my neck, man.
Vincent ran as fast as he could, hoping to reach his father for help, but it was already too late. He wasn't able to save himself that night.
It was very hard to understand how she didn't care.
With the new irrefutable evidence from the recording, Tempest's charges were upgraded to malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, and possession of a knife during the commission of a felony. After an agonizing 3-year wait, in December 2023, Tempest was finally found guilty. She was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole, bringing a sense of justice to Vincent's family, although the pain of their loss would never fully go away.
From looking at the reaction of the verdict, I think she thought she was going to get away with it.
Yes, she did.
It was deserving. I'm just happy that, we were the voice for Vincent and we got justice.
I can tell you with all honesty that it still hurts and that I will never get over this. I will never get past this. It's a piece of you.
Yes, he did,
and
Mary.
It's gone. So how do you feel that void when there's something missing?
What are your thoughts on this case? Was Tempest really a victim? Did she stab Vincent with the intention to kill him, or was it just an accident?
No.
We'd love to hear from you. If there's a case you'd like us to cover, don't hesitate to drop your recommendations in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Mysterious7, for more captivating true crime stories. Until next time,
report
stay
to their
safe
channel.
and keep your eyes peeled for the next.
That case was the worst. That case was the worst. It was the worst. It was the worst to me. I'm so glad that they gave her life in prison. I'm so glad that they upped her charge. After seeing that video, that woman really did disgust me. She really did disgust me in the most obscene way. Like, she had no remorse. She really thought that she was going to get away with it. She did not care. She wanted to taunt his family that she was able to abuse him and there was nothing that they could do to help him or save him because he was, in a way, he was wrapped around her fingers, right? He really thought that he could actually get away from her or try to help her. And then when he realized that there was no helping her, she was like, oh, okay. Well, if I can't have you and I can't make your life miserable and do whatever I want to do with you, guess what? No one else will have you. The simple fact that they had that recording of her saying behind him, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. That shows intent. You went and got a knife because you consciously went and got a knife to kill him because you could not deal with the fact that he was actually walking away from you this time. He wasn't going back and forth with you. It wasn't going to be no argument. He was completely done this time and you could not take it. You could not take it. The way that she did to that boy and the fact that he panicked and instead of just going to the next door neighbor and trying to get help, he tried to run home. I truly believe he tried to run to his dad's house or his mom's house. That's where he was running to. That's what I believe he was running to. But he got so tired because he had a stab wound to his neck and he's bleeding out after running that he was only able to make it to the gas station. And at that time, it was too late. He wasn't a threat at all. That was some vile, vicious woman. I'm sorry. I mean, I didn't know what state that was, but if they had the death penalty there, I think that's where she should have been at. I'm just saying that's where she should have been at because all the evidence showed that from numerous people, right? From his brother, the grandmother, the father, the mother. So this is a man. This is not a bandit, right? This was a man who was close with not only the matriarch in his family, but also his father, the patriarch, even though his parents divorced. He had counsel. He had guidance. He wanted to do the right thing. And she wanted to destroy and dim his life. Terrible ending. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Rest in peace to that young man. You did not deserve that. And excuse my language, bitch, rot in fucking hell. Okay? Rot in hell. You don't even deserve to be even considered a mom to your kids. You don't even deserve to even have his seed. Okay? That's how I feel about it. That's how I feel about it. All right, guys. So I hope that you enjoy these 3 cases. I know this last one was a real touchy one, and it's never a fun thing to actually have actual footage and hear someone in dire need or possibly taking their last breath. But I do want to appreciate everyone that was able to stick it out with me so we can review it, go over it. And a shout out to everyone who's in the chat participating today. I truly appreciate you as always. Go ahead and enjoy the rest of your night. Get ready for your work day earlier this morning. I will be back on Friday with 3 more cases, so please look out for that. And as always, I truly do appreciate all y'all time. And please take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on each other. And let's take it day by day, all right? I wish nothing but the best for all of you. Goodbye, everyone. Have a good night.